And so thanks, Charu. And once again, good afternoon, everyone. Um, Let me put the agenda first. So the agenda for today's session is actually it is divided into three parts. So what we will be going to do is that in the first part of the session, we will talk about branching strategy. The second part would be about continuous integration. And the final part would be continuous deployment. But before we jump into that, we will do some context setting. We will try to understand that why I picked up these three topics, how they correlate to Agile and how they fit into overall Agile ecosystem, right? Without wasting a lot of time, let's start with introduction. Let me introduce myself first. So as Charu has already talked about me, I'm a DevOps architect and evangelist, right? I wear multiple hats. Uh, I work as an architect, sometimes as a consultant, even as a DevOps engineer, and yes, trainer as well. So these are the various uh, modes in which I work. I have worked with multiple companies and helped them in transforming their DevOps practices, whether it is a greenfield project or brownfield projects, depending on needs and requirement. Let's say if somebody has to do the transformation to the microservices or let's say monolith, all those things, I help those companies in achieving all those aspects. So I will not waste a lot more time in my introduction. So that's pretty much about me. Now I would like to hear about you all guys. So what I would like you to do probably in one or two sentences, just give a brief introduction about yourself. Uh, the most important thing that I would like to hear from you is that your experience with the DevOps team. So let's say when you manages your projects, how do you interact with DevOps team? How your interaction goes, right? And then finally, what is your expectation from the lab as well? So we can start alphabetically. Um, so maybe I'll actually I'm not able to find the list of audience.
So, so Sandeep, I think we can help you there,
Yep.
right? So let's start with maybe Azmat Khan.
And if
Yeah,
you can turn
yeah.
on the video, that would be really great, at least for that duration when you are introducing yourself. So at least I can put a face in front of name.
Sorry about that. Actually, I'm not. There is some problem with the video. I will try in between. Okay.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So without wasting time, I would like to introduce myself. So I am Asmat Khan, and I work for S&P Global, and I work as a agile coach over there. So this role I have taken recently, but the thing is, before that I was having the testing experience. So for the DevOps thing is like we have Scrum teams which are following DevOps, and we used to interact with them in the sense that we are able to understand, okay, they are pushing their code through ADO pipeline, and how the pull request, and they are like merging the code, and after approving the code they will move it to production. So CI/CD/CT, that is something that is in place. And so we are agile coaches are not purely into the delivery, but yeah, we understand that the concepts and how the teams are working from DevOps perspective. So from this workshop, I would like to understand more about it and how I can, help the teams in, in coaching them. So that is something I am looking from this lab.
Sure, sure, Asmat. I'll try my
Yeah,
best.
thanks, Azmat. Let's go to, I can see Deepti here. Deepti, so Sandeep wants to, know
Hi, everybody.
why we are here. Yeah. So just introduce yourself and, why are you here in his, workshop? What is the expectation? Ian.
So, Sandeep, DevOps and CI/CD is something which is extremely important for all organization to get a pace of early release and a systematic release and a bug-free release. So that's what I was looking forward to, from your session, to burst some myths about it and to get a guidance, how to go about it. If your organization wants to start, what they can do. If their organization is already doing something, how can they check if they are doing it right or wrong? What are the industry standards? And I just hope I'm not asking for too much.
Right.
But yeah, that's what had been going on in my mind, and I thought with you we can get all those insights.
Sure, 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 Deepti.
Yeah, Thanks, Deepti. Let's move to Ajay now.
So I think Ajay has just joined. So Ajay, so we are just having an interaction where you have to introduce yourself and you can share what are your expectations from this workshop.
Yeah, hi. So myself Ajay. So I'm part of the development team. So I'm leading the cause development team in the JFL. So if I talked about the expectation of this, I was not having the complete agenda, so I was not able to give a picture of what is the expectation from this session. So if I could have the agenda of this meeting, so might be I will be able to give the answer to what kind of expectation might be we can be looking for.
So Sandeep has shared the agenda for you, but yes, the theme is DevOps that you already know. So probably you'll get more insights around it. So, to have a quick round of expectation, I would suggest let's have this in chat. Probably you guys can mention in the chat so that we can read out and, we can do it in a faster manner. So I would request all of you to please put your inputs in your chat. What are your expectations and what role you are playing in the organization?
So Deepti has put a question in the chat. What is DevOps? What is CI/CD pipeline? How can an organization can get on to this path? Nice question, Deepti. And how can an organization, as is if they are doing it, DevOps things correct or not? Being a Scrum Master, how can I help teams to improve on DevOps practices? What are the current trends? Are these trends even worth considering? Nice question. Very true.
So let's get started, Sandeep, and I think people can keep posting. I think you're on mute, Sandeep. No, it's okay. No, we can hear you.
Right. So I just want to add one more thing. So I prefer
if
one
your
more.
audio is very low, I'm sorry. Just increase that. Yeah, it's very low.
Ideally, should not be that.
It's fine actually.
It's fine. Okay. Everyone else is really loud. I'll be honest, except for Sandeep and maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I am also experiencing the same. Sandeep's voice is coming little low.
Is it better now or is it still?
Yeah, it's better. Can you increase it?
Exactly. If you can increase more, that will be awesome.
Yeah.
That's the maximum that I can do probably, because then it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Move that. Fine. Great. I just want to add one more thing. So I usually prefer that one-to-one interaction, which means that let's say if you have any questions, because I will be focusing primarily on presentation. So if you type something there, probably I'll miss it. So let's say as and when you have questions, feel free to ask those questions then and there. And I would be more than happy to answer those questions. But if they take time, then I will tell you that we will take it later. But I will prefer that you ask questions then and there, and I will try to answer them at that moment itself, right? Now, let's start. So I asked, you can ask any question to me, but I'll start asking a question. So in your experience or in your opinion, what do you think? What is the primary goal of a Scrum Master or a product owner? At a very high level, very, very high level.
I think this, I'm not very much, hi Sandeep, this is Robin here.
Yes,
so I'm not very much into Scrum, but I just got a training a few days ago. So I'm aware a bit about Scrum Master. I think Scrum Master main job is, to ensure that there is no Scrum, but somebody is following. All the people, all the team members in the Scrum are aligned to the Scrum ideology and the processes.
Right.
They should not deviate from it.
Right, Robin. But let's say by doing that, what you will achieve out of that? That's you're saying that this is the process or this is what we will do. But what would be the outcome of that?
See, I think if we are following a process and we say it, we are doing a Scrum here, and at the same time we are deviating from it. So there is no point of following such a process, right? So if we are following a process, it should be to the point. Otherwise, there is no point of following some ideology or some methodology for being agile. I mean, Scrum is one of the agile methodologies.
Right.
So yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that's my viewpoint. I'm not very expert in this area.
Yeah, hi, this is Venkat. So as a product owner, your aim is to to deliver a product or software which deliver value to users.
Right. Okay, great. Thanks, Venkat. Anyone else?
Yeah, so in my opinion, SMPO, dev team, all are focusing towards a goal, and the goal is basically the software delivery, and different roles are playing, different aspects. So, for example, SM is helping how we can improve on our software delivery part. It could be quality, time, or other processes that can enhance. Similarly, PO is trying to bridge the gap between the expectation and actual delivery, and developers are executing. So yeah.
Right. Thanks, Charu. So
I think PO, Sandeep, I think I will give you an analogy. I think PO is something like SCSI interface in a lap, Kanya computer. It's an interface between all the computing units in a PC. So something like that.
Right. So ultimately what we are saying that, as Charu mentioned, that there are different roles, right? So Scrum Master is following some processes, and Scrum Master is ensuring that all the processes are met. Product Owner basically ensures that all the backlog is done. Then we are, whatever we have acceptance criteria that we have defined, that is met. But ultimate goal of everyone in that organization, ultimate goal is that the software should get delivered, right? That is the end game that everybody wants to achieve, right? That sprint should get achieved. Whatever we have committed in that sprint, that should get delivered to the end users. That we agree.
Sandeep, is it always necessary to be a software as an end product, or it could be something else also, right?
Yeah, it can be anything, right? So ultimately, your end product, or you can say that your product should get delivered, right? And it can be a software, it can be some other product as well. But the end goal is that ultimately this is what gets delivered. But since we are talking about DevOps, which is more in contextual to the software. So that's why I have put it like this. But yes, I totally agree with you that it's not only about software, it can be anything, whatever product you are building, but it can be a physical product or it can be anything. But here, since you are talking about DevOps, so that's DevOps is primarily related with software only. So that's why I put it like this. Now, when we say that ultimate goal that we want to achieve is a delivery of a software, right? But then that is the end goal. But how you will achieve it? There are multiple levers or dimensions that you need, or the helping hands that you need, that ensure that your software should get delivered, right? And when we say that your software should get delivered, what are those various supporting ecosystem around that? The first and foremost is that you should have agility in place. We will talk in a while about agility. That when we say that agility, what do we mean by that? And especially that is in terms of software, right? So we should achieve the required agility, but only agility will not ensure that you have a software delivered, right? Because until unless, so let's say you have agility, but the end result that is getting as an outcome of a particular release or a sprint, if it is of not quality, then it is of no use, right? So which means that quality is another important factor. And then so let's say then we say that, okay, we had agility, but due to quality, if we are not releasing it on time due to XYZ reason, then also it loses its significance. So which means that the software that or the product that we want to deliver, ideally it should be supported by agility, quality, and timely delivery. Until unless you don't have a fine balance of all those three things, you will not be able to achieve the goal or the end goal for which all the members are working, especially Scrum Master and Product Owner, because ultimately it comes under their roles and responsibility to make sure that at the end of the sprint, the desired product comes as an output. Do we agree on this?
Yeah.
So, okay, great. Let me move forward. Now, a, a while back, I was having a discussion with someone, and somebody said that DevOps and Agile are twin sisters. Now, that person gave me the reason behind that as well, but I would like to hear out your thoughts. So, when we say DevOps and Agile are twin sister, what do we mean by that? Are they really twin sister? And if they are twin sister, what do we mean by that? Why do we say that they are twin sisters? Anyone from the audience?
So I think both of these are mindsets, and if we take the literal meaning of agility, it means swiftness, swiftness. So I think that can be achieved by a DevOps, but again, it's a mindset where we are thinking how to again improve on our deliverables and how we can speed up. So that ways I feel this these two are twin sisters.
Yep, that's right. Anybody else who would like to add any other thoughts around this point?
And even, I feel that, in DevOps, we talk about this CI/CD, continuous integration, and then continuous delivery. And in Agile also we say, right, we do iterations, we do increments, right? So, but to achieve those increments and iterations, we need a system which actually helps those to, make those increments and these, all those iterative development successful, right? How to achieve that when we are in DevOps? So we are doing it through, right, like all our testing automation suite, all our unit testing suite should be part of our deployment, right? As soon as any deployment happens, so we do incremental, software deliveries. So that's how I think these two are related. So this is my understanding.
Yeah, your understanding is quite correct, Sonia. Anyone else who would like to add their thoughts as well? Else I will apply 10-second rules, and if no one speaks in 10 seconds, then I'll share my thoughts. I will not say I'll give my answer. I'll give the answer. I'll share my thoughts. Okay, 10 seconds rule applied. So see, you all guys are agile expert, right? So probably I will not be able to say a lot around that. But what I understand that, as you said, that agile is a mindset, right? And the base philosophy of agile is eliminating waste, which says that eliminate waste wherever you want to do that. And for eliminating the waste, it has defined all those practices, processes, which says that, okay, you should, so let's talk about software delivery. When you say that eliminate waste, which means that you should not design upfront, right? You should release frequently. All those aspects come into the picture. Now, when we say DevOps and Agile are twin sisters, so what do we, in my opinion, what do we mean by that? Agile is about defining all those principles, but they are all our principles, or they all are concepts till the time they are not actually implemented. Now, how they will get implemented? DevOps is that ecosystem that helps them implementing it. So when we say that, okay, you should eliminate waste, which means that every week you should do release. Now, Agile will not do that release. Agile will say that you should do release. Now, how you will do those? Frequent release, every hour release, every day release, or every week release. You need DevOps to implement all those processes for you. When you say that a code review should happen, as soon as somebody commits the code, the check should happen and people should get feedback. This is what Agile says, right? You should have continuous feedback. Now, how you will get that feedback implemented? So DevOps comes into the picture, which says that, okay, you said that this should be done, and I'll help you implement it in reality, right? In real systems. So when we say DevOps and Agile are twin sister, in my opinion, what I understand from this is that Agile is about talking about all those concepts, principle, and defining all those things, right? But ultimately on ground, somebody has to implement it by actually implementing. So there would be Scrum Master, there would be PO who would be saying that you should do it. But then DevOps team will help them implementing all those principles and concepts. We will see that see all those things in a while. But this is what my understanding is. Are we on the same page till this point of time?
Absolutely, Sandeep. Yeah, the explanation was great.
Right. Now we talked about all those challenges. Now let's see. Let's talk about that how we can resolve those challenges. And now the DevOps terms will also start coming in. So on left hand side we will have the Agile terms, and then on right hand side we will have DevOps terms. Right. So we said that agility. Now let's say, and again, Robin, we will focus on software development only. So when we are saying that agility, what do we mean by that? One of the important thing is that we should be releasing our softwares, the releases we should do frequently. Now, let's say, and when you have to do something very, very fast, you cannot do it in a sequential manner. You have to do it in a parallel fashion. So let's say if let's say I'm working on a search of a particular application, and if I have to deliver 5 functionality of search, if I say that, okay, I will deliver functionality 1, functionality 2, functionality 3, and if due to some reason my functionality 2 is not delivered, I should not get blocked on the feature 3, feature 4, or feature 5. Out of those 5 features, uh, at the end of the sprint, I should be allowed to pick and choose that, okay, which all features are ready, and I should be allowed to deliver them. So let's say out of 5 features, if 2 features are not delivered or not completed, still I should go ahead with the 3 features, which means that a team should be allowed to work at an independent level, working on multiple features in parallel. So this is what you want to achieve, the desired agility. Now, how you will achieve it in software development, there is a concept where, so for example, let's say you have a tree, right? Now, there is a tree. Now, a tree has multiple branches. And now let's say due to some reason, somebody cuts a branch, that doesn't stop the growth of the tree still grows. Similarly, what we are saying that when you are doing your development, uh, you store your code, right? But then from that code itself, you create multiple branches saying that feature 1 branch, feature 2 branch, feature 3 branch. And then you'll say that, okay, let's start developing those independently. And at the end of the sprint, we will figure it out that, okay, which all features are ready. Or let's say in between also, we can say that, okay, my feature is ready, so let's deliver it. Let's deliver it. So that's how you will be able to reach that desired agility where you are doing your parallel work. And then at runtime, you're deciding that, okay, out of these 5 or 6 things that I'm developing, what all I can move to production, or let's say if something is not ready, at least it will not block me from sending other things into production. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, now let's talk about the second challenge. Now, the second challenge is quality. So we are saying that uh, we cannot deliver a particular software into production until unless it is of not quality. So Agile says that, okay, you should deliver a quality software. Now the point is that how you will make sure that the software is of quality. Now one option is that you have some person sitting in between. As soon as somebody shares a code, somebody sitting there and saying that, okay, the code is adhering to. So typically you have checklists, right? In Agile also you would be having checklists that, okay, whether we are following processes, check 1 done, check 2 done, check 3 done. So this is your compliance list or whatever your checklist, basis of which on which you will say that something is in good state or not, right? Similarly, DevOps comes with a concept which says that continuous integration. Now, when we say continuous integration, we will anyways cover it in detail. But what continuous integration ensures that you can consider it as a black box. Now, this black box says that I'm a black box, give me a piece of code. And the outcome or the output of that black box will tell you that, okay, the piece of code that you have given to me, whether it is of expected quality as per your organizational standard or as per your team standards. And if adheres to all those checks, then I'll provide you the corresponding, so which means that this particular piece of code can be released to the customer. So which means that now we are saying that we achieved agility via branching concept where we can do parallel development, but all those branches, a continuous integration black box would be sitting in just after them, ensuring that the code that is made in those branches, the continuous integration black box will ensure that from those branches, only that code will go out, which is of the desired quality. So then we are saying that, let's say if we have to ensure quality, we need continuous integration. Does that make sense? Now let's come to the next point. And here I have a question for you. So we are saying that we should be able to release our software on time, right? Now I would like to understand, probably I would like to hear from you guys. So let's say when a release happens for you guys, is it a ceremony, or how much time team does take to release a software? Or let's say when the release planning is done, how much time typically people say that, okay, we need this much time to release our software?
Usually every week or sometimes less than that.
right? So you release your code every week. But my question is that though you release your code every week, but let's say that planning that team needs to do to release a code. So my question is that, let's say if I go to your team and say that, okay, can you release this? The code is ready, but can you release this code to the production system right now? Can your team do that or not?
Sometimes it does, sometimes not. Depends on the functionality, and usually we allow future flags, so we can off some of the flags which are in progress currently. But yeah, usually it may take 1 day stat.
Okay, fine. Anybody else?
I think
Anybody?
my answer is quite similar. What
Mhm.
we just heard. So yeah, it takes a couple of hours. So it's not like we need to release this feature. The code is ready, and do it in a shot. No.
Mhm. Okay. Anyone else? And why that happens? So let's say we say that we are saying that probably it will take couple of hours, or it requires a 1 day TAT. So what is the reason behind that?
Reason maybe like we people follow trunk based development where we work in one branch only, and
Mhm.
while working on that we have a stable staging, but sometimes the staging is also not stable, so we can't really push at that point of time. If we are asked like you have to push in half an hour, then it would take much more than that. So probably 1 day tat is enough for every team
Mhm.
to release, I think.
Okay, great. Fine. Okay, fine. So see, now when we come into the DevOps world, right? And I think in most of your companies, DevOps is already being implemented. One of the important concept in terms of timely delivery is that uh, so see, software. So once a software is being developed, right? Whatever time it is taking, it can take all that time. But the point is that as soon as a software is ready, post that you should not have any delay. You should not have any delay, which means that at any point of time, somebody can say that, okay, my code is ready. Can you deploy it into production? From DevOps side, you should have that enablement in place, which will ensure that people, as and when people will say, the code can be deployed into the production system.
Yeah,
And
so as per your views, like the deployment side is hampered because of the continuous development that is being done on the code, and not because of the deployment strategies. Deployment strategy is already in process, already is there. So if your code is not in a position which can go to production, then we have to give a tat. Otherwise, if it is already working fine, then there is no point that it should take 1 day.
yes, yes. But my point is that sometimes what happens that uh, companies are not so mature in their DevOps practices where they are not able to achieve that. So then they have two blockers. One is that whether my code is ready or not. Though my code is ready, but I don't have those DevOps practices implemented, which will ensure that, okay, as and when I want to deploy my code, that is not there. And now what we are saying that when we are talking about timely delivery challenges, so from post development, let's say if you have continuous delivery or continuous deployment implemented, you will not have the challenge of time saying that, okay, I cannot deliver my software as and when asked. Let's say if you have continuous delivery and deployment implemented, those would be able to solve those challenges for you.
Yeah, agree.
Right. So now the context setting is done. Uh, uh, now, now onwards, we will dig deep into all those three concepts, and then we will see them in more details, right? Okay. Now, we talked about agility, right? And we said that to achieve agility, you need branching strategies. But I would like to hear from you guys. So let's say if you are working very closely with development team or DevOps team, uh, and if you can share some thoughts around the branching strategies that you guys are following, and what do you feel that what are the challenges? Otherwise, I will anyways talk about the various branching strategies and which will work out for you, which will not work for you. It's not like that it's a silver bullet that it will solve all the problems. So depending on use cases, you have different branching strategies. We will talk about them, but I would like to hear out from you guys first that what are the branching strategies that are there, and let's say, does it enable your team, or you see that you feel that the current branching strategy is somehow blocking the required agility, the development agility? Yep, anyone?
Not sure, Sandeep, like if the branching, if like I keep on hearing from the team, from the development team, basically, when they are working on, multiple features, they have taken multiple features in the same sprint. And that time, uh, what I used to hear is like, okay, these are the tickets, that are that we are waiting for other two tickets, their code to be merged actually, right? Because there are other developers that are working on. So
Let me
I'm
point for you, Sonia, so that will be more clear to everybody.
yeah, because branching strategies, exactly, we have not like heard. I have not heard.
Sure, not an issue. So what you're saying that
What strategy? Branching is fine. What strategy?
we will come to that. So what you're saying that in your organization, something like this happened that, let's say, this is a location where they are committing their code, right?
Correct.
And then what they say, they start committing their code here, right? So one code comes here, another code comes here, another code comes here, and probably let's say this is the end of sprint. Now, probably what would be happening in your case is that till the time they reach here, but this particular code, the complete code, probably is not in a stable state, right? And they said that the code is not stable, so we cannot deliver our code, right? Something.
Yeah, many a times. Yes.
Yeah, this would be one challenge. Okay, anyone else who would like to add something here?
It's the same challenge that we face. This is because we follow the trunk based development where we have the master branch only, and that works as a like we can say a reference point for every developer. But we are allowed to create branches, but those are not ideally shared by everyone, because people do tend to follow branches and set with their codes for 1 or 2 days, which uh, kind of as a scrum loses its point when you are hiding up some code on your local system or on your branch, but not merging at regular intervals. So we follow a trunk based development. That's why the 1 week criteria of pushing the code is there. And with other branches also, some of the projects are following, which are like merging the other branches at regular intervals. But yeah, don't know which one is the best strategy and which one
Sure.
should follow.
Yeah, this is what we will try to solve in this
Yeah.
particular session, right? So now let's talk about the branching strategy, right? So we are saying that let's say we have a very simple project, not very complex. A team decides a weekly goal, and let's assume that they achieve that goal, right? They achieve that goal. So the scenario that Sonia is talking about, so we are talking about this scenario that a team has committed that, okay, in this particular week, we are going to deliver the functionality, and let's say the team is able to achieve all those things. So then this particular strategy will work for them, right? You will not have an issue. You commit something, you develop everything, and then you can release your code from this particular location, and everyone would be happy, right? But that is more like, so this particular strategy works pretty well when you have a very simple project, and then if you are able to achieve all those desired uh, uh, goals that you've defined for yourself. So then we say that, okay, we have a single branch and everything will work fine. We will not have an issue. But the problem comes when we say that, let's say I am working, so let's say we are working on a week, and then I am developing multiple features. And just because the feature 1 and feature 2 got completed, but feature 3, feature 4 not got completed, I cannot deliver my code. But now if you see here, what we are seeing that, let's say if you have this kind of a scenario, and now let's say you started developing your code. So let's say some code came here, some code came here. Now there is another feature, let's say magenta feature. So then what you did, you forked out a branch from here, and then people start committing their code at this particular place. Another feature came into picture. They start developing their code here. Now just imagine, let's say this particular feature didn't got completed. Let's imagine as a scenario. But let's say this one got completed, which means that the team has a flexibility to release this particular feature from this particular code base, right? So even if this particular feature was not completed from this branch, they can still be able to deliver their code. So which means that, let's say out of 5 features, they will still be able to release feature 1, feature 2, feature 3, but they will not be releasing feature 4. But still they will be in a much better shape as compared to the previous state, where they can say that either we will deliver everything or we will not deliver anything. But here what we are saying that probably from 5 things, we will deliver 4 things. We will not deliver the 5th thing, but still we are able to deliver 4 things, because now what we are saying that we are creating separate branches. And then we have that flexibility that, okay, if we have to deliver feature 1, I will deliver it from the branch of it. Another feature, I will deliver it from there.
Hi, this is Tarun here.
Yes.
Wanted to understand from the Magenta branch, are you going to merge it to the master branch, or you would be having a release from there itself? What's your...
I'll come to that in a minute. But yes, it will be merged back, because then you will lose the stuff, right?
Okay.
But
we'll be waiting for your answer whenever you will come to.
But does that make sense? At least it is giving you that freedom that you can release 4 features. It's not like that you will not be able to release any feature, right? Earlier, what was happening that either you will be delivering everything or you will be delivering nothing. But as soon as this feature branch concept comes into the picture, now you have flexibility to release n number of things out of m, right? That capability you have in the system, right? Here we all are on single page, right?
Yeah.
Great. Now let me try to answer your question. So see, in real scenario, it happens something like this. So what we say that, let's say this is a place from where I would be releasing my software. Right? Now let's say I started developing for my next release. So what I will do, I will create a new branch from here. I created a new branch from here. And let's say my feature 1, I started working on my feature 1. So what I did, I created a branch, and the team who was working on feature 1, they started committing their code here. But if you notice here, it is not stable yet this point of time, right? So they will still be continuing working on this. Let's say this is feature 2. So what they did, they created a new feature 2, and then they started working on it. And let's say at this point of time, the complete feature got developed for them. As soon as the complete feature got developed from them, what they did, they merged it back into the development branch. And once, let's say the whole testing done for this, then they merged it into release branch, and finally to this particular branch from where you can release your code. Now, if you notice here, what has happened, though my feature 1 was not complete, I released my feature 2. There was a bug fix, which I did, and again merged it back here and created a release, and whatever common changes that I have to do here. But now I am able to do release of my feature 1. I was able to do a release of my hot fixes, and I am able to move forward. So now I have that flexibility where I'm not saying that, okay, I will deliver 0 or 100. I can say that I can deliver 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%, or even 100%. But that I will choose now, depending on that, what is the current state of my system. Does that make sense now?
Yes. In this case, if both the features are ready, so how you are going to merge to the
right? So let's say if this feature was ready, let's say this. Let me do one thing. Let's say at this point of time, this feature got completed, right? Then what will happen? Probably this will get merged here, right? And once this is get merged, then probably
so there might be chances to overwriting of the code.
No.
If in feature 1 and feature 2, if the same classes is going to be changed, so there might be possibility. So then how those things are going to be considered?
So when we talk about merging of code, so there is a version control system as a tool, right? Which has a responsibility that it will help you in managing the versions of your code and ensuring that there should not be any merge conflict. So the responsibility of overriding of code lies with version control system. So what will happen that, let's say you are merging this code here. Now, let's say if there is a file that is being overwritten or conflict at this point of time, the version control system will throw an error to you saying that, okay, there is a conflict, and you should resolve this conflict. And then as an end user, because computer cannot, so let's say you have also modified a file and I have also modified a file. Computer will not be able to identify that. If we have modified same file, if we would have modified different file, then computer would, or the version control system will be able to do those merging. It will be able to club both of them together, right? But let's say if you have changed same thing in one file and I have changed same thing in same file, and these are two different versions, then a conflict will happen here. And then as as a user of that version control system, because you have developed that particular piece of code or a file, so you have to modify it. But one of the practice that people follow is that instead of directly merging it like this, what they do, they first do a merging from bottom to top and then something like this. So let's say the team who is working on this particular feature, it is their responsibility that when you merge from downstream to upstream, there should be no conflict. And if any conflict, even if any conflict which will come here, it should come here, and then the team who is working on this particular feature, they will be resolving this conflict. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
So this is the typical process that people typically follow. But now if you see here, now you have complete flexibility that whether I want to release this one or release this one, or let's say just because of some issues, if I'm not able to deliver this on time, I will not be able to meet my goals. Probably I will be able to meet my goals partially, right? Not fully, maybe 80%, 60%, 70%, whatever be the percentage of features that contributes to the overall velocity or goal that I have, right?
Sandeep, is it possible to roll back the merging as well?
Yes, yes. So as I said that, see, all these scenarios that you're talking about, resolving conflict, merging, rolling it back, that all is provided by the version control tool in itself. So they provide all these features, and this is what is expected from a version control system tool, right? It should facilitate the branching philosophy. It should facilitate merging those branches. It should facilitate if there's a conflict happens, it should be able to tell the end user that, okay, there's a conflict, you should resolve it. Or let's say if you want to roll it back, then it should be able to facilitate that as well.
So Sandeep, this volume 1, 2, so these are the features, right? Different features or releases?
Yeah, this you can, so see, I'll tell you. So what happens that, let's say when you're doing a release, so you give a name to this particular release. So you are saying that release version 1.0, version
Okay.
0.2.
Okay. So yeah, so you mentioned, right, that at one moment of time we can, have this hot fix or bug and feature, and we will together, merge it, and it will get pushed for the release, right? So I want to understand from here, what is the starting or ending, or is it like you are describing from, release point of view?
No, it is completely dynamic. So let's say in between your project, you were at this state, right?
Okay.
Let's assume you were at there. Now the next release started. Let me draw this as well. Just give me a minute. So probably what would have happened that, let me draw it here. So let's say till this point of time, your sprint, let's say sprint X finished, right? At this point of time.
Okay.
And let's say this is your sprint X plus 1. That would be the case, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm saying that, let's say this is my sprint X and this is my sprint X plus 1, right?
Right.
So at this point of time, I will deliver my sprint X release to the production. At this point of time, I will deliver my sprint X plus 1 release to the production. Now, let's talk about scenario. So when the product owner, scrum master and team will be developing, so they said that in sprint X plus 1, let's say I have to deliver feature 1 and feature 2. So they committed to these feature 1 and feature 2, right?
Yes.
Now, let's say the development team who was working on feature 1. So what they did, they created a branch called feature 1. And the development 2 who started working on feature 2, they created a branch called feature 2 and they started working on it, right?
Right.
And let's say when this is a product that is already into production, so which means that end customer would be using it.
Right.
Now, while using it, there was a high criticality bug that came into the picture. So let's say a bug also got raised into system. So let's say issue 19 got raised into the system. So this would be the state, intermediate state, right? Now, the team who was started working on feature 1, they started working on feature 1. So what they did, they cut out a branch called feature 1 and they started working on it, right? The team who started working on feature 2, they started working on feature 2 branch. Now there was another team, production support team. As soon as they realized there is a bug with issue number 19, what they did, from this place, they created a new branch called hotfix.
Okay.
And then what they did, let's say they named this branch as issue 19 branch, and then they started doing fixes here. Now this is happening independently, right? As soon as they fixed this particular issue, what they did, they committed this issue back into the master branch, and then they gave it to the DevOps team saying that, okay, we are ready, you can deploy this particular code into the production system. Now production system, the DevOps team, what they did, they created a named identifier at this particular location saying that this is a named identifier that I have given version 0.2, which means that this is an intermediate bug fix or patch that we have done. But let's say tomorrow, if a new issue comes, we will cut a branch from here, right?
Okay.
Because now you cannot cut branch from here because there's a bug fix also is available here, which means that the state of the code at this particular time, what it would be version 0.1 plus I19. This is the state of the code at this point of time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we merged it, we came here, but that's why we have given a name to it, so that let's say if another production issue happens, then we will cut branch from this particular named identifier. Or let's say if somebody comes to me, say that, okay, which version of code is deployed into production? I can say that version 0.2 is deployed into production, right? Now let's say the feature 2 team was not able to finish their code on time, right? But since feature 1 team was able to finish their code on time, they merged that code back into the development branch and then finally into the release branch and merged it back into master branch, and then they created a release branch, and this code got delivered, which is essentially what, if you see here, it is essentially version 0.1 plus I19 plus feature 1. Because if you see, the version 0.1 was here, I19 came here, and then it got available here, and feature 1 also got here. So at this point of time, it is I19 plus feature 1. And then it ultimately got available here, and from there it went here. So which means that you covered everything, right? When you release the next release of your code at the end of the sprint.
Got it. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks.
I can understand it's too complicated. I wanted to keep it high level, but I hope that this branching strategy is clear, because sometimes what happens that as a Scrum Master, development team tells you that, okay, we are having merge conflict, but other people typically don't have full context, right? But at least if you have that context, and this diagram is very, very important. If you have a very clear understanding of this diagram, then you can enable your development team and you can ask those questions that, okay, why you are not doing feature development? Why you are not doing parallel releases? This is the most important aspect in terms of, in my opinion, for the agile coaches or Scrum Master product owner, where they can say that, though you will not be able to deliver everything, but let's do parallel development and maybe deliver 8 things out of 10 things, instead of saying that, okay, let's stretch our timelines or let's shift our sprint, right? That should not happen. Whatever you want to deliver at the end of sprint, you should definitely deliver. Maybe not fully, but partially, right?
Yeah. This diagram is very much useful, I can say. So Sandeep, at the end, you will be sharing, right, these slides?
Yes, the PPT will be shared.
Yeah, at the end, I would also like to know one thing, Sandeep, here. So regarding these branches, right? So would also like to understand from you if you can, put some lights on how the review process can be done. Some idea or thoughts. So that will, as an agile coach, so sometimes I have to, coach the teams and support the team. So if any ideas you can give.
Very simple rule. Any code that comes into the version control system, it should be reviewed. As simple as that. A code, if a code is coming into version control system, it has to be reviewed, and ideally it should be automated. So there are multiple tools that are available. In fact, as if now, all the version control systems comes with this philosophy where they say that you have a concept of merge request or pull request. So ideally, people should not directly commit code into the branch. They should create their own branch, do the changes there, and then they should raise a merge request saying that, okay, I want to merge my code from this branch to this branch. And then the version control system, it can be GitHub, it can be Bitbucket, it can be GitLab, it can be anything, right? They have a philosophy saying that, okay, I have an automated process. At least two people should review it, or an automated review should happen. So maybe it will invoke some other CI server. We will talk about CI, but it will invoke a CI server that will perform all those checks. Checks are passing or not, passing or not. And then only the code should get merged from one branch to another branch, because this is your sanitized branch, right? You will never want unstable code coming here. So a simple rule is that code should definitely get reviewed. The simple rule. Any code that is coming to the system, that should definitely get reviewed.
Thanks. Yeah.
Great. Any other question apart from this? I hope this branching strategy would be, at least conceptually, should be clear in your mind, right?
I have a question, Sandeep.
Yes.
So how would we maintain these branches? Like the separate DevOps team should like when should they clear those extra branches, and when should they clean up these? Otherwise, would it be dynamic, or how to approach this
See,
process?
if you notice here, if you see here, this master branch is a static branch, right? This branch, this development branch is also fixed branch, right? Only these two branches are the static branches. After that, all the branches are dynamic in nature, which means that you will create a branch, do your work, and then it should go away. It should get terminated. If you notice here, the branch is coming, and once it is done, it is getting merged here, right? After that, it is not existing. So which means that your feature branch should be short-lived. They should exist only the time you are developing that feature. As soon as that feature is done, those branches should also get deleted.
Okay, so that should be a like dynamic process with respect to our pipeline.
Yes.
How we approach our setup.
So see, again, this is the responsibility of DevOps. So they should ensure that the branches should be short-lived. The feature branch should get created, and as they get automatically merged into the parent branch, they should get terminated as well.
Okay, thanks.
By the way, just to let you know, especially in case, in case of SVN, right? People use this SVN. That is a very heavy operation, the branch. But let's say if you talk about Git as a version control system, there the branches are very, very lightweight. And that's why people don't bother to clean them up.
Yeah.
And that doesn't bring any challenge. But yes, I totally agree with you. Cleanup should definitely happen, and cleanup should happen. And I think as a Scrum Master, maybe, yes, you or a product owner, you should say that, okay, why these are lying? Because then mistakenly somebody do something and then it will cause problem. So they should get deleted as soon as their life is over. In fact, version control system provide you that feature. When you say that as you merge this branch into this branch, they say that I will delete this branch by default. And while configuring your version control system, you can define this property that, okay, when you merge a branch from one branch to another branch, that branch should get deleted.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Great. Any other question?
There's no question in the chat as of now. I think we all are, vocal about our questions. So there's nothing in chat.
That I will prefer that. So we are pretty much done in terms of concept of branching. I think we had a decent discussion. So maybe the next topic is continuous integration anyways, Charu. So
so let's have a break for 10 minutes, Sandeep, because I think that will be a logical break, and then we can start with a new topic. So guys, let's take a break and let's be back in 10 minutes.
Great. So let's start with a question. I would like to hear your thoughts in terms of what do you understand by continuous integration, and what is your experience with continuous integration in your organization, and what are you doing in that? Hello.
Yeah, so maybe the way you have just explained that, when we are sure that feature is completed, so we integrate it into main branch. So is it, you mean by continuous? So we should, keep integrating our code into the main branch, so that it is ready for release and can be deployed on production at shorter notice.
Right. Yep. I'll add something there as well, Charu. Yeah. Anyone else? Anyone else who would like to share their thought? Robin? Okay, I'll apply 10-second rule. So see, whenever I try to decipher the meaning of any word or any statement, I usually try to decipher that word or statement only, right? Now, if you see here, this particular, I'll not say sentence, but these two words, they have their own independent meaning, right? So the first word is continuous. The second word is integration. So which means that what it is trying to say is that you should do continuous integration. When we say integration, is means that you will club couple of things together, right? And when you have to club those things together, probably you will say that, okay, some checks I have to perform. So now let's look at the various, I'll say, levers of continuous integration or the KPIs. So one thing that I would like to add, Charu, here is that, see, let's talk about the purpose of continuous integration. So Agile says that you should have frequent feedbacks, right? Now, what is the purpose of feedback? Because the waste should get eliminated. That's why you should get immediate feedback. So take this example. Let's say team is working, right? 10 people are working, or let's say 50 team people are working. Now, let's say somebody has done a code commit which made the complete code unstable. Now, a developer who did a commit, it went to version control system. And from there, let's say if all the 50 developer pull that code in their local system, which means that now they will also not be able to work. So which means that as soon as a code being made available into the system, a check should be performed that should notify all those people that, okay, hey, wait, there is some problem. You should not take this particular code because this is unstable in nature, because your work also will get impacted, right? So that is the prime purpose of continuous integration, where it says that I will be continuously doing the integration checks for you. And as soon as I find some problem, I will let you know. Now, those checks can be of varied category or significance. We will talk about them. What all those are various checks, right? So let me talk about that. So first and foremost is that, let's say if the code is there, ideally it should be stable. So as soon as the code comes into the version control system, or let's say if it comes to my system, I will expect it to be stable in nature, right? That should be the one integration check that should happen. The next integration check is it should be of good quality, because let's say if the quality is not good, which means that probably it will not exactly at that particular point of time, but later, maybe in a day or maybe sometime later, it will cause issues in the system. It will break some functionality because the quality was not good, or probably the maintainability, manageability will not be impacted, right? So which means that another key performance indicator, key performance indicator would be that whether the quality of that particular piece of code is good or not. The third would be the unit test cases. Now let me show you it via diagram. Probably that will make more sense. So let's say this is a particular piece of software that a team is developing, or let's say a module. Now what will happen that it is never like one single monolith. So let's say if this is a piece of code, it will not be one single file, right? It would be combination of multiple files or multiple functionality. Now let's say this is my functionality 1. This is my functionality 2. This is my functionality 3. This is my functionality 4. This is my functionality 5. This is my functionality 6. And this is my functionality 7. It would be something like this, right?
Could there be overlapping functionalities as well?
So they will use each other. So what we'll say that, okay, the boundaries that are touching, they would be using each other, right? I'll draw it. Now it is something like this, right? Now this functionality one would be, this is what you're talking about, Charu, right? This functionality would be talking to this functionality would be talking to this one, right? And this functionality would be, or let's say this is something like this, right? It would be something like this. Now let's say if I change this, let's say I change this functionality. Let's say I am doing some modification in this particular, let's say I'm doing some modification in this particular piece of code. Now the point is that, let's say if I'm doing the changes in this particular piece of code, what I have to do, I have to ensure that whosoever talking to this particular piece of functionality, they should also not get impacted by it. Now, one thing is that I will test this piece of code, then I have to test this piece of code as well. And that's why when we say that you have to do development, your individual units should also be tested. So which means that, let's say if the unit test case is written for this, unit test case written for this, for everything, if unit test case is run into this. So which means that when you send this particular piece of code to, let's say the when you send this particular piece of code to CI system, you don't have to whether my functionality will break or pass, because now you have an assumption that everything is unit tested. So though I have done a change here, but since my CI system is doing the unit testing of this, so any breakage that will happen, my CI system will tell me. As a developer, I don't have to bother that I will test this one, this one, this one. I don't have to test everything. I'll probably test this piece of code, or maybe I will not test this as well, because I have written unit test cases for it, which will check that whether this functionality will work fine. There would be unit test case for F1, F6, F5, and they will all ensure that everything is working fine. So in that sense, a code which has unit test cases written, the stability increases, the stability of the overall system increases manifold because of that. I'm pretty sure that you would have seen in your projects, in your organization, that people say that, okay, somebody has done some change and it has, because of that, another functionality was broken. Now, if you ask that question to them, okay, do you write unit test cases? What is your coverage of your unit test cases? Probably the unit test cases are not written, or probably the coverage of those unit cases would be very, very less. And that's why these reference issues happen. Change at this particular place will cause issue in this functionality as well.
So ideally, then unit tests should be run at in feature branches itself, so that when we are integrating them into develop branch, or then maybe again in master branch, so we should not have issues, and we should have better stable code,
yes,
and lesser conflict.
Yes, I'll come to that. In fact, I have all these questions for you guys only. You guys will answer that question. Yeah, but we will cover. So right now I'm only talking about levers and the significance of each lever, right? So significance of this lever stability is that if the code is unstable, developer will get impacted. If quality get impacted, ultimately, when your code will be deployed in production system, then you will have face issues. If unit tests are broken, you will be spending a lot of time making sure that your code is written properly or not, right? Then test coverage is another area which says that, okay, what is the coverage of the test cases? Is it 10%, 20%? The more the test coverage for you is, the better the stable the code would be, right? Or the any changes that you have to do, you don't have to worry whether it will break something else apart from the code that a developer have touched, right? And then finally, the security. So I think people used to talk about DevOps, right? But now DevSecOps has come into the picture, which means that earlier, I think, and you can also correlate with that. Earlier, what used to happen, that people used to develop their software, and just before doing production release, they used to say that, okay, let's perform security check. But now this notion is going away. Now people are saying that security should be first class citizen, which means that at every stage, the security check should perform. When you are doing your CI, at that particular point of time, security check should happen. When you are setting up your infrastructure, the infrastructure security should be checked while creating infrastructure, not when your application gets deployed into that. So that's why security is also a very, very important part of your CI lever. So you should check that aspect as well. And I'm assuming that would have happened with you guys, right? That some security issue would have happened, then you have to roll back the complete code because security was not taken care at the time of CI. Does that happen? Has it happened in your organization?
Yes, with me it has happened. So we had to roll back, and it caused delay, and yeah, it had repercussions. So yes, so security, because yes, we did not perform security scan at earlier stage. So yeah.
Right. So again, the same philosophy Agile comes into picture, that the sooner you do things, the better off you would be, right? Now now Charu, we will come to your question, right? Where you talked about that, okay, what should be done. So now let's go into the detail of all the CI levers that we have talked about. Now, what we will be doing, we will be doing an exercise with you guys. So what I have done, I have written these things. So the first one is integration check. What is that integration check? The 5 integration checks that we have mentioned, we will pick up each integration check, and then we will try to decipher that what should be the continuity or the frequency of that integration check. Shall we perform that integration checks on every commit, or daily, or every hour, or every 6 hours? That I want to hear from you guys. And then let's say if that integration check fails, then who should be the stakeholder for that notification? Does that make sense to everyone? Hello?
Yeah. Yeah, Sandeep. Yeah.
Great. So get ready, huh?
Sure.
So the first thing is code stability, right? So we say that code stability is the very important aspect, right? Now we are saying that code stability is integration check, right? Now, in your opinion, and I would like to hear thoughts from everyone. In your opinion, what should be the frequency of this code stability? Now, you can have multiple answers. You can say that on every commit. You can say that when you merge one branch into another branch, that can be another option. It can be every hour. It can be every 6 hours. But I would like to hear your thoughts and the rationale behind those thoughts.
I think every time when we push, we can say that we can hook that in pre push hook, because if we do it in every commit, it will be very painful for to run each and every unit test.
No, we are not talking about unit tests. We are only talking about checking the stability of code.
So I think the way we are checking the stability is by running the unit test.
No. Right. No. So you have a tool which only checks whether the code is stable in nature. It is not breaking, right? So take example of Java application. If you do Java compile, it will tell you that whether the code is in compilable state or not. Something like that.
Okay. Actually, yeah. Okay.
Take example, let's say you buy a bowl from market, right? So you simply see that bowl, that okay, this bowl is in good shape or not. You don't perform the test, that okay, stress testing and all those things, you don't do it. You simply look at that bowl. If it looks good, you buy it. Or let's take example factory. When they do it, the first thing that they see that bowl is in shape, let's move forward. And after that, they will be doing unit testing it for you, or various testing. But the first testing would be that okay, the shape is proper or not, or probably there is no breakage at a very high level, right? Same is the case with code, because you are saying that okay, we got a code. Now that code, will this particular piece of code will run on another person's system or not? Unit test may fail, right? But code can still run.
Okay. So in that case, I can also relate this scenario with the pre push hook. So the reason is same, because it reduces the pain of checking the code stability again and again, and that is the main or initial point where that code is going to be merged with the any other's work. Some means any other developer's work. So the reasoning for from my side is the same for now, as per my understanding. But I'll want to listen from the other. Or
sure.
So I think ideally with every commit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And what would be the rationale, Charu?
Yeah, because here we are talking about stability. So whenever any change happens, so I think it to check whether it should not have ripple effect. So yes, after every commit, we should check whether a code is still stable or not, as per my understanding.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Anyone else?
what I think is when we merge the code, right? So at every merge, if we can get okay, what is breaking, so when we will finally release to production, that it will be easy. Otherwise, if different people will merge their code, and so it will definitely affect the stability, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're saying that when you merge one branch to another branch, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, great. Anyone else?
Yeah, I feel Sandeep, it should be with every commit
Mm-hmm.
because I have seen many of the problem, right? So if any code is, they have committed something, and then they are, code reviews done and all those stuff. I don't know unit test cases they run or not. Unit test cases for those features are still pending. That's fine, but when we are getting anything to test, and that in staging environment, then say 500 server error. That's not right? It means some code stability, I think we didn't check. Maybe unit test cases we didn't run, right? Something bad has happened, right? 502 error, 500 error. So I think commit is one thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Let me give my opinion as well. So see, ultimately everything boils down to cost, right? What is the cost of? So let's say when we say that we want to perform a commit, which means that uh, a server would be running those test costs for you, matlab,
Yeah.
validating the stability, which means that it will incur some cost. So one is the cost for that, where a server is running those checks for you. Now let's see. Let's say if that test fail, what would be the cost, right? Now, what will happen that if stability fails? So let's say you are working with a team of 10, 20 people. Now, as soon as a code stability fail, and let's say if all the team members got that unstable code in their system, which means that now they can also not run that application on their local system. When they cannot run that application, which means that they cannot test it. When they cannot test it, which means that they cannot move forward. So which means that a single instability because of one person will cause a ripple effect across the team, and it will lead into loss of man hours. So you will have direct impact in terms of a loss of man hours. So which means that you have to always ensure that as soon as a code that comes into the system should be validated, right, and ensure that it should not be unstable so that it will impact other people, because then you have a direct loss of man hours, right? So then what we are saying that ideally this should happen on every commit. Now, Amirpal, let me answer. Let me give an input for your input as well. So you said that it should happen on every
Yeah.
pre-commit, right? Now,
Yeah.
where this pre-commit hook will get executed on the developer machine itself, right?
Right.
Now, when we are saying that it will get executed on developer machine, which means that there is a no automated way of creating this pre-commit hook, right?
Not actually. The pre-push webhooks ran automatically
No,
on.
they will run automatically, Amirpal, but the point is that on that developer machine,
Yeah.
on the repository of that developer machine, you have to enable that pre-commit hook. There is no automated way of enabling that. Now, which means that it will be the manual responsibility of team member that they will enable that pre-commit hook.
Okay.
So ideally, you should do it centrally, the central version control system, where there you can probably have a pre-commit hook saying that, okay, my version control system, it will not let anything come into the system, or probably a commit hook or commit check as well. So on developer machine, pre-commit hook is not a good idea, because I have implemented it, and then I face this problem that I have to define a process saying that, okay, you should always install this pre-commit hook into your system, which will ensure that a pre-commit of the stability will run on your system, and it will not allow to commit. Because then some people do it, some people don't do it, they feel unnecessary blocked because of that, and usually people tend to disable that.
Okay. Okay.
Right. Okay. My next question: who should be the stakeholder for this integration check failure? So let's say if this integration check fails, who all should get notified? So there are two part of it. One is to, another one is CP. So when a mail would be sent, typically you said that you send a mail to a certain set of people saying that, okay, this has happened, and then some CC, right? So there's a to and CC section in email. So now tell me, who should be in to and who should be in CC?
Okay. I think ideally the developer who is pushing the code is should be in the to, and the rest of the team member are in the other recipient or CC group. If we take an example of email structure.
Right. Okay. Anyone else who has other inputs around same?
I think developers and the DevOps, DevOps owner, maybe, we can put in CC.
Okay. Yeah. Fine. Achha, let me ask this question probably to everyone. So let's say when you send a mail with two, right? You intend to tell that person, okay, you have to do this thing, right? And then in CC, where we want to keep people informed. Now think about this example. Let's say when the code stability fails, who all should be the interested party? The first one would be, as Amir Pal has said, that the person who has broken the code or brought the instability, that person should be told that, okay, you have brought the instability in the system, you should fix it, right? So which means that it is pretty obvious that that person should be notified, right? And directly notified, which means that it makes a lot more sense that person should be in two. Now, who should be CC when we say that, okay, it's about just notification. Now, let's say if the code is unstable, the only intended party who would be interested knowing this thing would be the developer. Take the example, I am a DevOps. If the code is breaking, I am not at all bothered. It doesn't matter to me, right? Because this code is not getting deployed anywhere. The code is getting committed into version control system and the teams are working on it, right? I don't have to worry about it until unless they say that, okay, this code needs to be deployed somewhere. Does that make sense? So what we are saying that, let's say if this code stability integration check fails, then the person or a set of person who contributed to that unstable code should get notified, and the complete development team should be informed that, okay, the code is unstable, you should not take that latest code. Does that make sense?
Yep. Sandeep, as Azmat mentioned that probably DevOps peers should also be in two, because they might have to, act upon because the branch is unstable. Or is it that only the developer who has...
That, let's say as a DevOps, if I get that notification, I will not do any action, because the developer who caused that problem, probably that person would be fixing it. The development team, they will be notified that, okay, you should not take that code. Apart from that, so basically this is a development branch that we are talking about, right? Now in this branch, I am not consuming that branch for my any of the operation.
Yeah.
Means that I would not be consuming this branch, you know? So let's say as a DevOps or as a Scrum Master, if I'm not consuming that branch, probably I would not be interested to getting my email box choked with all these mails.
Yeah. That's
great. Now, the next lever is code quality, which tells you about the quality of the code. For example, how many bugs we have in the code, how many vulnerabilities, how many code smells you have, what is the code coverage, duplication, all those aspects, code duplication. So all these details comes to you in the form of code quality. So for example, this is a summarized view of code quality, and then this is a detailed view. For one single project, this is the overall. How many new bugs came into the system, new vulnerabilities, all those aspects, right? Now, let me ask again, let's go back to the same question. What do you think, what should be the frequency of code quality? And you have to consider cost as well, है ना?
Frequency of checking the code quality?
Yes.
Okay. I think if we are
when we merge the code.
Sorry?
When we merge the code, right, to main branch.
Not exactly. Achha, you are saying that when you merge the code, then only you will switch from code quality.
Just before that, basically.
Just before that. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Sandeep. So this would be my first answer. Actually, not from the technical background,
No.
and I'm more of a creative person. But I'm like thoroughly enjoying the conversation. I'm picking so much of tips and things from here. So I suppose, with my experience, I suppose a code quality should be checked every time a piece of code is written. So immediately after the code is written and it is supposed to be merged or sent or whatever, immediately after that it should be checked whether it is correct or not.
Okay, fine. Okay. Yep. Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree with both of the speakers, and the code quality should check on every time we are going to merge the code with the main branch. By reviewing the code. So the frequency should be at least when we are pushing that code to the production.
Great. Okay.
We have one more answer in the chat box that says should be instant on developer system.
Okay, fine. Okay. Let's consider a real scenario, right? Take this example. Let's say you are a developer. Just put yourself in developer shoes. Now you are working on a feature which you have to deliver, right? Now let's say on every 5 minutes you are receiving a mail that code quality is not good. Code quality is not good. What do you think what would be the priority of developer? Will he? What developer will do? The developer will say that, okay, let me fix it right now, or probably I will do it later. Probably, what would be the thought of developer?
I think developer would
scenario.
They'll say we'll do it later because code is working. Let's deploy the feature and it's just quality maybe. They'll think that way.
Because see, as I mentioned, that there's a cost associated with it, right? So I'm saying that there are in multiple aspects the cost is. See, in ideal cases, it should happen on every commit. That I totally agree. But I'm talking about practical scenarios here. Now, I'm saying that typically code quality will never be good, right? It will always be something like this.
Yeah.
It will always be something like this. Now, the point is that if you want to maintain if you want to say that, okay, in every commit will fix it, probably the code quality will never be like this. So it's about discipline as well. But when I'm talking about practical scenarios, usually what happens that, or let's say when you're doing your work, you keep on doing your work, but at the end of the day, you said, okay, let me clean everything, clean all the mess up, and then I will probably leave my system in a good shape. This is typically what people does, right? Because probably, let's say every time I'm getting some notification that fix the quality, right? I'll say that, okay, my prime focus is building the functionality, right? Probably the variable name is not correct. I am not handling, let's say I have not created a function, all those things that are not very important. For me, the important aspect is the application is working or not, right? So what I have seen in my experience is that right, Tarun, that's what I'm saying, that ideally this should happen. But when I go to the practical world, this is what usually people don't do. I totally agree with your statement that it should happen on every commit, or let's say on the developer system itself. But what I've seen that people usually don't do it, right? And now if I talk about in practical sense, probably let's say if I am looking at that project, probably I would be seeing the report at the end of the day. Okay, what is the state of the project in terms of quality, and then probably I'll chase out people that, okay, fix it. So what I have seen that usually in my case, people have a nightly code quality check operation that performs every night, and then it gives you the report of the state of your code at the end of the day, saying that, okay, this is the status of quality of your code. And that's where that's where you are right now at this point of time.
So which means when you come back in the morning, you should be just ready for a heart attack.
Yes, you should be ready for your stand-up, and in that stand-up you should be ready to answer all those questions, that what is where it is. But again, I'm saying that this is what I have seen most of the time. That's what people do. But I totally believe in that this should also be a part of every commit. But there is one more angle around it, right? So let's say when we are saying about code quality, which means that what we are going to do, we are going to perform all these operations. We would be testing code in terms of what is the status of bugs, vulnerability, which means that it will take time. Now, let's say if you are a team which is very, very agile, which is doing very frequent commit, so which means that the time duration of your validation will also increase significantly.
Maybe DODs can help here, because you mentioned how mature are the teams or how frequently they are committing. Accordingly, we can set our DODs and then we can set that, when we will be checking this quality. So I think, once we have set the benchmark, if it exceeds that, so probably it's time and we should work on our quality.
Right. Yeah, because then what happens, and then people start creating this concept of technical backlog, saying that this is my backlog, we have to improve quality. This is the other action item that people typically do. Achha, let's talk about the yeah, I totally agree with you, Tarun. And this is what typically I have seen people doing that. They say that, okay, at the end of the day, we will run it probably in evening or maybe at night, and then people will get feedback. Okay, now who should be the stakeholder? Who should get notified?
The same, I think the person who wrote the code, and yes, I think that person only.
Okay.
Yes.
Achha, tell me this thing. Does this concept, who owns the quality of the quality delivery of application? Whose responsibility is this?
You.
PO or Scrum Master, right?
No, I
in
don't
my
know.
opinion, development team.
Yes.
But see, process-wise, Scrum Master defines it, right? And then they have to ensure that the overall the code that will get delivered into ultimately production system, they are the main stakeholder around it, right? Developer would be they would be responsible for their own functionality, right? They cannot ensure the quality of the whole code base, right?
But in my opinion, these days, when we talk about self-organized team and, maintaining the transparency throughout, and we talk about one common goal. So I think Scrum Masters can help them, as you said, nightly will run, and then in the next stand-up, maybe Scrum Master can bring the focus, guys, we are not doing good here. But ultimately, I think the accountability will be of all PO, Scrum Master, and development team, but majorly I think it would be development team.
No. So let me tell you, Charu, from where I'm coming from. So see, what do you think? Joint responsibility, does that work? Well, let's say you said that, okay, the ultimate code should be of good quality, right?
Yes.
Now, you cannot give it to one single developer. Every developer will own their piece of code only, right? Now, there should be some person who should be ensuring that code is of quality. It's not like that by writing that particular piece of code. Obviously, developers will write that code, but somebody will own it, which will always keep a check on the state of the system, saying that, okay, the state of system, how good is it? Is it good? Is it bad? Or is it average? So somebody will own it, and that person will continuously be working to ensure that the code will move from bad state to good state, right? And when the person who would be doing it, obviously it cannot be developer, right? Because they will only own up their piece of code. Whereas when we talk about Scrum Master and product owner, it is primarily they are ensuring that the code will get delivered on time and obviously with a high quality. Obviously they will not do it, but they will ensure that this is what it should be, right? Or you don't agree with that?
If I somehow not completely agree to it, because
but then let me just answer me this question. Does joint responsibility work where you say that, okay, you 10 people ensure the quality of the code? Will they ensure that?
I mean, that's the purpose of stand-up, right? I mean, yes, I said that Scrum Master can help there in bringing the focus of the team, but then it's it's team who has to decide
yes.
and come up with the action that what needs to be done. So
Right, but I'm talking about that focus only, that there should be a person who should be ensuring that the team focus remains there. But let's say if a person who sits there who will ensure that team focus will remain there, that person should be at the top of those things, at least in terms of maintaining those matrices and ensuring that matrices remains in a right range, right?
Yeah, so yeah, whistleblowing is it falls into Scrum Master and PO's bucket.
This is my opinion. So what I'm saying that usually I've seen that joint responsibility never works, right? You have to make somebody owner of a particular stuff. Now the point is that let's say we are saying that code is of quality, there should be somebody who should own it. And in my opinion, because I have not worked a lot in Agile, but what I've seen is that Scrum Master will ensure that sprint delivery will get delivered on time. Now, let's say if the quality is not good, that will not get delivered on time. Do you agree with that or not?
Yeah.
Now, let's say if the quality is not good, which means that Scrum Master should be most concerned person that whether the quality of code is in right state or not. If that is not right, then Scrum Master will raise that concern in stand-up saying that, okay, the quality is going bad, probably this functionality. And then obviously the development team will obviously try to fix it. But somebody would be there who would be checking probably daily basis or whatsoever frequency, telling the team that, okay, to bring their focus back. This is only what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, fine. So then what I'm saying that the two, in my opinion, should be Scrum Master, and then obviously the development team should also be informed that, okay, the quality is going in probably north direction or south direction. So they should also get notified, right? Now let's talk about security. So we talked about that security over a period of time has become an integral part of your every stage, which means that CI as well. So when we talk about security, there are multiple aspects about it. So one of the very important aspect is the credentials, right? So which means that the code, if it contains credentials, people should get notified. Or you can take other examples as well, vulnerabilities as well, the third-party dependencies which you are using, if they are vulnerable, right? So then we are saying that in your CI pipeline, the security scanning should also happen. Now, what should be the frequency? What do you feel? Anyone?
So I'm not sure, like from security standpoint, Sandeep, I have heard about the dynamic scan and, static scan, right? So when it comes to static scan, it's on the code, correct?
Right.
So again, it ensures quality in terms of security, right? So I think again, when, I don't know, like after every commit, we cannot, right?
Let's look at cost, Sonia. Let's try to answer that. So think about an organization, right? And let's say there is a credentials of that organization. And some just if you commit those credentials, some hacker can get into the system. What do you think? What would be the cost of that particular change, which will get unnoticed, let's say for a few hours or a few days? What would be the cost of that?
Cost can be huge, right? So intruders can get into the system and then, everything,
Right.
The secrets, information they'll steal or so loss is huge.
Right. So what we are saying that, let's say the security scanning. So there are multiple aspects of security scanning. So one would be that there are some very, very important information which has a huge impact on your system. So probably those checks should happen on every commit. Checks that can remain in the system for, let's say, some duration of time. Probably for those checks you will not be needing that immediate frequency, right?
Yeah.
But here we are talking about credential scanning, which means that they are very, very important part of the system, right?
Yeah,
So then we are saying that ideally that should happen on every commit, right? And who should be the stakeholder?
Developers.
Considering what discussion has been going on, I think again Scrum Master and product owners will be held responsible for this. Like you said, that joint responsibility does not exist, although that's how it's written in the book that everybody on the team is responsible. So I'm sorry, I still feel that, you can't take away the entire responsibility off the shoulders of the developers. They
Yeah,
do have, they are responsible for a bad piece of code. But yes, there has to be somebody, but as they say in the books that, Scrum Master is not the manager. So it would be wrong to say that Scrum Master is the top authority who's responsible to make sure that everybody down there is working properly, because there's nobody who's down there. Everybody is together in that team. So keeping in mind how the discussion is going on, I would say that Scrum Master and product owner, but ideally it should be the entire team, because everybody who's responsible, let's suppose when you're designing the architecture, and when that phase is going on, the security scanning and fixing and everything has to be done then and there. So everybody who's responsible, whose duty it is to perform that, who's working in that phase or stage, is responsible. And no doubt Scrum Master or the product owner are responsible at a higher level to make sure that you understand what I'm saying.
No, I understand. Let me clarify one thing. So let's remove this word owner, or let's talk about facilitator.
Yeah.
Who would be the facilitator of this check? That this check should not fail and get.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Yeah,
because when you say owner, it seems as if everything is thrown upon the shoulders of the Scrum Master and product owner, that you are the one who's responsible, and team is just not. No?
Actually, my intent was about facilitator, not about owner. Okay.
So since you have used this word explicitly, so not has to be Scrum Master. Okay. Maybe we can, I can see one SM. Yeah, it's again SM in the chat box.
Yeah. So, okay, I'll give you a different perspective. So let's say if a company who is very, very strict about security and all those aspects, then typically those organizations have CISO, right? Security, they have a separate security team. So ideally they should get notified, and obviously the contributor who contributed that security vulnerability that creeped into system. So in my opinion, let's say if you have a CISO team, they should be the part of that. Obviously the contributor, they should be notified directly. And then obviously the rest of the development team, you have to notify. CC, Scrum Master, product owner can also be part, but I think that is more has to do security. That's why I think that probably CISO would be the right person. Okay, now the next item is in terms of code coverage. So this is a very important picture, which you should, at least from the DevOps side, you guys should also be well aware about it, at least the dimensions of the KPI. When we say code coverage, there are multiple aspects of a code coverage, and that varies from language to language. So this is a Java language that we are talking about, where we are saying that the test cases that are written, how much percentage of code they are covering. So if you notice here, package, files, so how many files my current test case are covering. So if you notice, only 33% files are being tested by unit test cases. How many methods? So let's say in all the files, let's say total number of methods are 16, but out of those methods, only one method is being tested. So which means that the overall coverage is 6%. Then let's say the total number of lines that I have in my overall code, only 5% is being covered and 0% is conditional. Just for your information, the most important metrics in terms of code coverage is line and conditional. Most of the time, the mistake that people does, they only consider line as a success criteria of their code coverage. But conditional coverage is also equally very important. So let's say if you want to check the, let's say if you want to measure this KPI of code coverage, you should always check both these dimensions, that what is the line coverage of the code and what is the conditional coverage of the code. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So then probably since we are short of time, so I will quickly cover it. So what we are saying that code coverage should happen probably ideally. It depends that, okay, what should be the frequency, but since code coverage is not something that will block developers from developing their code, so it can happen on every day. And then the Scrum Master, because when code coverage is less, obviously it will impact the quality of code. So Scrum Master should facilitate that the code coverage should be at a decent level. And obviously the development who are actually working on the code, they should also be informed about it. Right. Then finally, let's say if all these checks pass, and let's say if they all meet the desired criteria, then ultimately what you will do, your CI black box will generate an artifact, which is more like a combination of everything, one single file, and then you make it available somewhere at some location saying that, okay, now a particular piece of code came into my CI system, it get into it, it got all the validation that needed to be done, and finally one single file is available, which is now ready to be deployed into the production system. So now you can deploy this particular piece of code into the production system, or you can merge that code into another branch as well. So these are the two outcomes of CI process. One would be that let's say I want to merge one branch into another branch. My CI checks will perform, and then it will merge one branch into the other branch. Or let's say the main branch from where you want to deploy your code, you say that run the CI checks. The CI checks will be run, and then one final artifact will be generated for you and would be made available, which can be deployed into production systems or any other system. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. So again, we are dot on time. So that's a good thing. Any questions you have in terms of CI?
I think Sandeep, CI concept, you have covered it quite, beautifully, because you told about security and then code quality. Usually, when development team, we as a development team, we are working on, some feature on some sprint, right? We don't talk about these things at that time, right? It's only maybe when we are reviewing the sprint, or that time it's just like, what is a unit test coverage and all. But quality check and security is something, it's hidden somewhere, or at the last those will pop up when there's some major issue, right? So, and I feel the quality of code affects performance as well, right? The way that code is, the CSS and JavaScript. So we have faced one such scenario recently. So that's how, I can relate to it, how it's very important to consider all those aspects in a sprint actually.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Any other input, guys?
So Sandeep, I have a query. I mean, is there a system, holistically who checks all these levers automatically? So I mean, if it's a manual responsibility, obviously there is a chances of miss.
Obviously. So see, Robin, there are two types of solutions available here. One is you have to homegrown your complete solution. So for example, talk about Jenkins. So this is a complete homegrown solution where you have to do this complete solutioning by yourself. Then there are different SaaS companies that are in this market, which provides you sort of templates, which says that, okay, we will cover all those things for you, right? So GitHub, so for example, GitHub is a version control system company. They have a concept called GitHub Actions. And for a lot of projects, they have said that, okay, we have already defined a CI template for you, which you can use, and then it will do all those operations for you. But frankly speaking, for every project, you have your own requirement set of all those things. So you have to do some tweaking, some tuning at your end. But if you go there, GitHub Actions are there, GitLab pipeline are there. There you will also find customized solution. Azure DevOps is pretty good in that sense. Azure DevOps comes, in fact, in Azure DevOps, you can create your own templates. So let's say for one project, you create your template, and then all projects, you can use that particular template to perform the CI stuff. But then it gives you those independent modules which you can use. So then you have to just you plug them in or combine them together to achieve what you want to achieve, right? But some sort of weaving you have to do.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other question, guys?
We are good. No questions in the chat box.
Okay, great.
So before moving on to the next topic, guys, do you need another break for 5 minutes? What say? You can raise your hands.
I'll just move my location so that.
Not okay. So we have one thumbs up.
No, it's fine.
All right. So let's take a pause for 5 minutes. And
Okay. So welcome back, guys, for the final session of this lab. So we will start with CD. Now, before we start, I have two questions for you. The first question is that, or maybe let's start with the first question only. So how the CD is implemented in your ecosystem at this point of time? Or maybe I'll take a step back. What do you understand by CD?
Continuous deployment.
Yes.
Continuous delivery.
Yes, continuous delivery, continuous deployment. So that would be my next question. What is the difference between continuous delivery and continuous deployment? But yes, so either whether it is continuous delivery, whether it is continuous deployment. Okay, would you like to tell what happens in the continuous delivery or in continuous deployment?
So we have different environments to make sure that finally it is ready to be released. So for example, QA environment and then production environment, and yeah, so that is what my understanding is.
Right. Yes. So we are saying that continuous integration delivered a package to us, right? Which can be deployed into production. Now, obviously, you cannot deploy that packet directly into production systems because you have to. So in CI, what we did, whether that code is of good quality or not, we have only validated that. But what we have not validated, whether it will function properly in production or not. And then there are multiple stakeholders who will validate that, or the multiple checks will be performed on that particular, the final artifact that we got from the CI pipeline, right? Can somebody tell me what all are those various checks that should be performed, or what are the various stakeholders who will give nod saying that, okay, this can be deployed into production?
QA are the one. QA.
Okay, QA would be one.
Product owner.
Product owner would be one.
With product owner, again, like BAs are quite similar. They're part of product team. And definitely security. That I don't know what the team name would be, but here in our company, it's security champions. So we have some authority sort of thing who check that, basically they check operational readiness checklist, they call it as, So they have people from DevOps who check the infrastructure and a couple of more things that our system is ready to be deployed to production. So, right. And there they check feature flag, log, file, many other stuff like things like that.
Okay. So, what other stakeholders would be there?
End user, you want to use the feature?
End user, I'll probably say end user would. Yeah, basically when you deploy production system, end user will be into the picture. Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about UAT.
Okay, so you're talking about business users, right?
Yes, business users, correct.
Business users, which will the product owner will also come into that aspect, right?
Okay.
Yep, Robin. Anybody else? I think you are forgetting two important entities in this. Okay, I will not make it more suspenseful. So see, what we are saying that the first and foremost entity ideally should be developers, right? First of all, they should tell that, okay, our code is ready to be tested, right? Unless they won't give you a nod how QA will test it out. Do you agree or not? Developers also a stakeholder saying that, okay, this code is ready, right?
We just thought, code is ready, code is of high quality and
No. CI is done, right? But
yes.
functionality wise, it is running fine or not, probably that also needs to be validated, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I'll tell you that usually this doesn't happen. Usually developers think that as soon as I have committed the code, this is ready. Now this is the responsibility of QA, but that is a wrong practice, because then what happens? Then there's a lot of friction between developer and QA, because then QA complains that, okay, developer simply commits their code, they never validates it. So ideally, a nod should be given from developer side as well, saying that, okay, this piece of code now is ready, you should test, right? That then a lot of friction goes away. I'm not sure that ideally this should happen.
Yeah.
Now, so once developer gives checks from their side, then obviously QA would be there. And then we will talk about that, what QA will do. But we are saying that QA has to perform some checks, which means that QA need some environment where will they be doing their checks. So here we are talking about environment. So dev team would need a dev environment where they would be doing their validation and giving approval that, okay, this particular piece of code is ready to be deployed in production. Once they give a go ahead, then QA will come into the picture. They will test that particular piece of code or that artifact and validate whether it is meeting their expectations. If that meets their expectations, then it will be going to the performance team as well, right? So security you will do, but obviously performance is also a very critical part. Some organization doesn't do it, but a lot of organization has started doing it. So they said, okay, I would like to do the performance testing, especially when you are a B2C company. Do you agree with that? Hello?
Yeah, Sandeep. Yeah,
Yes.
performance is
right.
quite.
So performance, you need a performance environment where you will do performance testing. Then you have a UAT and pre-prod where your typical business users, the business, they will do their testing. Product owner, they will also validate that everything is happening as expected to the customer, and ultimately you will have production environment, right? So usually I have seen that ideally you should have these many environment, but let's come to the practicality. In practicality, what I have seen, I have seen dev QA, security environment is not there. Ideally security environment should have been here. So dev QA, UAT and prod. Usually I have seen these four environment. A fairly decent organization, they will they usually have dev QA, UAT and prod. An organization which is very cost sensitive, then they typically have a QA environment and prod environment. And then they use QA environment for both dev testing and UAT testing. The organization that is cost sensitive, organization that is very, very particular about all the aspects. And let's say if they're a B2C company, then they have a PT environment as well. And let's say where the product owners and all those people are very, very strong, they typically want to have a pre-prod, they want to have a security environment as well. Where, so let's say if it's a fintech company, right? Or let's say a bank, right? So they definitely have a security environment as well. But again, this will vary, but at least QA environment and prod environment, that's everywhere. So it will depend that in which organization you are working and what are your needs and requirements. Depending on that, you will have all those environment. Now, I think we talked about continuous delivery and continuous deployment. Would somebody like to talk about that? What do you mean by, what is the difference between continuous delivery and deployment? A lot of people have confusion around there.
We would like to hear from the developers that we have, the participants that we have.
Sure.
Yeah, anyone from the participant?
Okay, I'll apply 10-second principles. Okay, anyone?
So maybe I can talk about continuous deployment. It's like if we are releasing something to the production environment, right? So the downtime should be very low, or I'd say there should not be any, I don't know, like downtime, right? Let's say if another second, after 1 hour, I'll say, I have to release another set of features, right? My system should be, ready to, do some deployment to the production without any downtime. It's like continuous, right?
Right.
Continuous delivery is somewhat, I will say, see, delivery is something which we can apply to sprint, right? the increment that we are doing. And then deployment is something, the whole, when we are releasing something. So it can be multiple sprints. Let's say one sprint we do some increment, right? And then deployment we did after, 4 weeks, for example, to the production. So again, things are similar, and continuous delivery is something, let's say we are just doing something in till QA environment, or, this performance, we released new features and all those without, it just continuous delivery without breaking anything.
Right. Achha, let me give you some hint as well, right? Probably
Can
that
I?
will... Yeah, please,
Someone, yeah.
Yeah, I think continuous delivery and deployment are basically to similar approach, but the only difference is, I think, with the process. Like a continuous delivery is something where the control is in developer's hand, where like as in our case we do it every week, so we have a push button where we push everything to production. But with the deployments, I think it's continuously deployed for every commits, or you can say the merge process that you explained earlier, where in you are merging and it automatically getting deployed to production. As per
right.
my...
Yeah.
If I go by literal meaning, probably once it is deployed, only then it can be delivered. So.
No.
So you are quite close, Neem, but let me give you one more hint, right? As I mentioned that probably you should try to decipher word, right? Now let's decipher both these words. So we are saying that deployment, right? And it should happen continuously. What does it mean? That as soon as you came something from your continuous integration, it should be deployed into production system. This should be continuous deployment, right? As simple as that. Is that clear? Continuously, you are getting something continuously deploying it into production system, right?
That means every commit is deploying to a production system.
Not every commit, every CI, whatever you get from the CI, that should get deployed into production. So maybe every commit is not passing CI check.
Okay, so that means whenever a feature is merging, or
Yeah,
you can say...
whatever process you will define there, right? So I'm saying that whatever you are getting from CI, if your CD pipeline get triggered, it will deploy to dev, QA, PT, UAT, pre-prod, prod, done, right? Continuously, the stream is coming and you're deploying to prod. This is clear, right? Now let's talk about continuous delivery. Now let me give you one perspective. Think about this: developer, QA, Scrum Master, all these entities. So when they're developing this piece of software, to whom they would be delivering this particular piece of software?
To the customer.
Are you sure that they are delivering to the customer? If you see, actually, for them, the piece of code that they're developing, or the QA that they're testing, they are primarily doing for the business. They are delivering it to the business, right? And then business will say that, okay, I want to sit in between the customer and that my team, and I will decide that, okay, whether this particular release will be given to the client or not. I'll give an example, Charu. So let's say I as a business decided that, okay, in March I will be delivering feature 1, feature 2, and feature 3, right? Now let's say the continuous integration kicked in, it approved feature 1, and it got validated by dev, it got validated by QA, it got validated by PT, it got validated by, in the UAT pre-prod environment, by PU and business. Now business, so from feature wise, from the application development wise or module development wise, they are done, right? Their job is done, right? Because everything is validated. But think from business perspective, probably it doesn't make business sense for them to send feature 1 without feature 2. So they would like to take control that what will go into production. And then what we are saying that what we want to do continuous delivery to the business. So everything will be delivered to the business, and business will take the final call whether they want to send it to the production or not. So what business can say that, okay, I would not like to deliver, make my feature 1 available to the customer, but obviously I want it to be delivered so that as and when I want it to be available to the customer, it would be available. So as Neem was mentioning that The only difference between continuous delivery and deployment is that you do it manually. Now, what Neem was mentioning, that developer says that, okay, I want to push into production. But Neem, if you agree, ultimately you get this go ahead from business only, that, okay, you can deploy this code, right?
Exactly. Yeah. When they check, then only we can.
So business will decide that, okay, if I'm getting 10 features, whether I want to ship every feature in for the client, or I'll say that, okay, I will ship 5 features to the client. So they will decide. So they will sit in between production and UAT, saying that, okay, I will approve what will go into production or what will not go into production. Some people do it with feature flag as well. Then they enable disable feature flag, but this is also a concept in continuous delivery. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
So is it that delivery is related to release? I mean, we can, by deployment, we can ensure that it is production ready to be released, but delivery is actual releasing of that feature.
Yes. So release will, it's, yeah, you can say that my release is done and then it will be delivered to the business. The only difference, Charu, is that release can be in different sense, right? So development team will do a release. Probably their CI will not kick in and it will not process the CD process. That can also be a case. But here we are talking about delivery and deployment.
Got it. Thank you.
So, okay, fine. So I hope that is clear. Anyways, we will cover that once again, but till this point, difference between continuous delivery and deployment, is that clear to you? Because this business angle is very, very important, which usually people ignore. Okay, now we will do, this time I will not do activity, I will explain it to you guys. So what we are saying that we have an environment. We have, for that environment, what sort of checks will happen, right? And then who would be the stakeholder who will get, or I'll say facilitator, who will get notified that there is a problem in the system, this check has been failed. So maybe the process will stop here and again the team will start working on that fix, right? Now let's talk about dev. So we have a dev environment. So what do you think, what sort of checks will happen on dev environment? I don't expect that you would be aware about it, but if you can answer that, that would be really great.
Feature testing?
Yes, feature testing obviously would be one aspect. So the developer who would be delivering that feature, they would be doing that feature testing. So what we say that usually a smoke testing or a feature testing would be done. Obviously, smoke testing and feature testing are different things, but yes, you do a smoke testing. Probably I will not do a detailed testing, but the feature that I have developed, probably I simply go and test that feature, that whether that feature is working fine or not. Now, who would be the facilitator or stakeholder? Developer, right? So we will say that, okay, if it's breaking, the developer will get notified that, okay, this feature is breaking, probably should look into it. Developer will fix it, the CI will kick in, and then again CD pipeline, whether it is deployment or delivery, that will start, right? Now let's talk about QA environment. Now here multiple types of checks will be performed depending on that what all responsibility your QA team takes. So would somebody like to answer that? What all typically, or in your organization, what all checks QA performs?
Integration test?
Integration test, yes.
Regression testing.
Regression testing, right? So we are saying that regression, integration are functional, and then API testing. So let's say if you have some backend components, some those backend API testing would also be done, right? But the most important is regression and functional tests that they perform, right? Now, who would be the stakeholder?
QA and CC in developers.
Yeah, QA and Scrum Master, because Scrum Master has to facilitate. So Scrum Master will be notified. The QA will obviously raise bugs for developer and then they will fix it. But let's say if the QA regression fails, then QA will get notified that this is failed. Now they will analyze this and then they will inform developer that this exact issue is there, right? Because let's say that failure report, developer will not spend time analyzing that report. Ultimately, QA would be analyzing. Scrum Master will only needs to be aware that, okay, the QA check has failed. So they will get to know about this only. But analyzing and on the basis of that creation of bugs and all those things will be done by QA, right? Does that make sense? Hello.
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me move forward. Now the next item is performance testing. So as its name suggests, you will be doing performance testing only in performance environment, right? Who would be the stakeholder? By the way, I have a very high expectation from Scrum Master. So, right. So here I'm saying that performance testing team would be notified that, okay, performance test has failed. And then QA team and Scrum Master should also get notified that, okay, there's an instability in the system. The security. So in security, there are multiple checks that happen: VPAT, compliance, vulnerability, all those sorts of checks will happen. And let's say if those checks fail, then CISO, so in my opinion, CISO should own it. Different organizations, some organizations have them, some organization doesn't have them. Then obviously Scrum Master and product owner become that facilitator, ensuring that the system remains secure. Obviously development team lead all also gets notified, but that's how it is. UAT. Or pre-prod, you can say it UAT or pre-prod. What sort of checks will be performed here?
Mainly functional testing.
So one would be the acceptance. So there would be some acceptance criteria. That acceptance testing should be done, right? Then obviously business testing. Now, after UAT, it would be just prod, right? So some companies prefer to perform a regression testing as well, just to be sure that, okay, something will not break before going into production. But that is different people take different call. But acceptance test and business test, that definitely happens. Who would be the stakeholder? So product owner, Scrum Master and business will be notified, right? Finally, prod. What sort of checks will happen on prod?
Again, one round of, testing.
What sort of testing? There are multiple testing, right?
Smoke testing.
Smoke.
Yep. Smoke testing, because you cannot afford to perform regression testing or detailed testing, right? So typically, there is a principle called 2080. Do you know that 2080 principle?
Not exactly.
Okay, anyone else who knows about 2080 principle?
Yeah, a little bit about 2080 is that 20% of the things which are causing the problem will actually affect 80% of things, something like that. Sorry.
Yeah, think it from the product side. So let's say you have a product and there's a 2080 principle for product.
So let's suppose if you're testing and 20% of the elements that break or do not perform well during your testing, so there is a possibility that the rest of the 80% does not has to be checked, because there's a possibility that that will also fail, something like that.
Yeah, Tarun also is what Tarun said that. So I'll give another hint, Raki. So you use mobile, right? Everybody uses mobile, right? So the point is that how many features of that mobile you use.
Yeah.
So see, in product development, there is in product development, typically it is said that 80%, 20% of the functionality covers, people typically use 20% of functionality of your product. 80% are more like cherry on the cake, which they will use or not, or once in a while they use, right? So that's why when you release your product, when you release your software on production systems, ideally you should validate those 20% functionality only. And that's why we say that you should do a smoke testing. So when you do smoke testing, probably you will not be testing 100% the scenarios. What you would be doing, you would be testing only 20% scenarios, which 80% of customer would be using. So which will at least, because the time is of importance, right? So let's say you cannot do 2 hours or 3 hours of testing. You would like to do a testing which will be done within 5 minutes. So you will know that, okay, whether if there is an issue, I have to roll it back, right? So your testing duration should be very, very less. And that's why you should be doing smoke testing. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Hello?
absolutely. Yes.
Okay, great. Fine. Who would be the stakeholder, or who should get notified if these checks fail?
Primarily the product owner, I suppose,
Business.
and the business.
Yeah, business, release team, all those things, and then they should be additional notification. But so let's say if something fails, then release team has to roll it back, right? So as soon as something happens, they should be quickly notified, and they should roll it back, right? So I'm saying that, let's say if the smoke test failed, then release team will get notified, and the release team will revert it back to the previous state. But other important stakeholder will get notified that okay, there is some problem, so they will be aware about it, right? Now we talked about continuous delivery and deployment. So this is what we were talking about. So we are saying that on dev environment, your smoke testing will happen. If it passes, then the release will be sent to the QA environment where regression, functional, and API testing will be performed. If it passes there, then whether you have performance testing concept or not, if you have that, then a performance testing will happen. If that also passes, then your acceptance and BDD testing will happen. Post that, if that also passes, since you're doing continuous delivery without any issues, it will be done on production, and post-production test in form of sanity will get executed for you. So this is what would be a continuous delivery pipeline for you, right? Whereas, so when you talk about continuous delivery, so there would be a manual approval from the business who will approve that whether it will go into production or not. Whereas when we talk about continuous, sorry, this image is wrong. So when you do continuous deployment, here you will not have any manual validation. Whereas when you did continuous delivery, there was at UAT environment, it required a manual approval saying that we will stop here, and then business will do a manual approval whether this particular release will go into production system or not. So which means that there would be multiple releases that will come here and stop here, and then business will decide what will go here or not. Whereas if we talk about continuous deployment, sorry, this should be delivery, right? There's a spelling mistake here. So it should be continuous delivery. So if it is continuous delivery, then the code will come here. Dev environment will get validated via smoke testing. QA environment will get validate regression, functional, and API. PT will validate performance. If you have a security environment, it will do the security testing for you. Finally, in UAT or pre-prod, acceptance and BDD will done. And then production deployment will also be done, and a sanity will done. If it is fails, then rollback will happen. Otherwise, everything will work fine. Does that make sense?
Sandeep, you meant in case of continuous delivery pipeline, when we are in UAT, so there should not be any manual intervention that is done, correct?
Sorry.
So in the slide, that was showing continuous delivery pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yes. So in continuous delivery, you are saying after UAT, there should be manual approval, right?
Yes, right.
We run our test case manually. Let's say, we have some, high level business scenarios, and we run with, business. And then we give, okay, just, we are good to go for, production, correct?
Yes.
So in terms of continuous, the next slide, right? That you were
Yes.
sharing, there is nothing manual that is required.
No, nothing. That's why we are saying continuous deployment, which means that things will come here, it will go here, here, and to production. It will not stop. It is continuously deploying to the client. So ultimately, you are continuously deploying to the client. Whereas in this particular case, you are continuous delivery to the business. You are just delivering here, and then you are done. After that, business will manually decide that whether it should go into production or not.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what we talked about, continuous deployment pipeline. Now, one of the last important concept that I want you all guys to know about, though it is very more specific to DevOps, but still you guys should also understand that, right? So what we are saying that there are different, so let's say when you deploy your code, right? Or let's say whenever you do some work, there are multiple ways of doing some work. I'll give an example. Let's say if you have to go to Gurgaon from Noida, right? There is not a single way you can, there are multiple ways. So you can go via cab as well. You can go via metro as well. You can take bus as well. You can have your own vehicle, right? Now my question is that how you will decide that what you have to use? Can you tell me? Or different people, how they will decide that what they have to use?
In that case, cost and time is the first factor that we consider. First of all would be how soon we want.
Factor, right?
Yeah. And second is the time factor. How much time is it going to take?
And the third factor would be a scenario as well. So for example, let's say I don't have a cost issue, right? But let's say I know that when there are business office timings, probably it doesn't make sense to go via road, right? Even I don't have a cost issue, still I will not prefer to go via road because I know that probably it will take me 2 to 3 hours to reach Gurgaon from Noida. Probably it makes a lot more sense to go via metro because I will not at least waste time, though it would be very, very crowded, but at least my time will be saved. In half time, I will reach to Gurgaon from Noida. Everyone agrees to that, right? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Right. So now I will discuss about different deployment strategies and the various factors around that. So I will talk about all those deployment strategies, but first I will list down these deployment strategies. So one is recreate, another one is rolling, or some people call it rammed strategy. Then there's a blue-green deployment strategy as well. Then there is a canary deployment as well. I'm just naming it down. We will talk about all these strategies in a while. And then shadow as well. So these are the various deployment strategies that people use depending on their use case, their need, and their requirement, depending on factors. Now, let's look at the factors that are there. Or I would like to hear from you guys. What do you think? What are the, let's say when the code needs to be deployed, what are the factors that will exist there?
Availability of resources.
Availability of resources. Yep. Can you give more detail, Charu? What do you mean by availability of resources?
I mean, I'm just considering the example that you gave, when we have to reach to destination B from A to B. So
yes, right. So yeah, that would also be a case. That what is the infrastructure that is available to you? So let's say if you have a cloud, probably your deployment strategy will be different. If you have a local data center or a single server sitting on your home, probably your deployment strategy will be different. Yep. What are the other aspects? You can think of, just think as a normal user, not in terms of a DevOps engineer, as a normal user. Let's say you're talking to somebody, what all things here come to your mind that should somebody take into consideration? Okay, I have to.
Zero downtime.
Downtime, obviously, downtime should be one factor, right? Whether I can afford downtime or not, or can I afford bigger downtime or a very small downtime, or not a downtime at all? That can be one factor. What would be the other factor? Okay, I'll move forward then. So I will skip this part, but this is more like a scenario that I will be talking about, that let's say if I have an application like this, then how I will be doing it. Now, these are the possible scenarios or the consideration factors on the basis of which you will choose a deployment strategy. So as we already discussed, whether we can afford downtime or not, or a zero downtime is our requirement. If zero downtime is our requirement, then obviously we cannot do some certain deployment strategies, right? The second scenario that you would like to have, whether you want to have a real traffic analysis or not, that how users are behaving. So take example of an e-commerce company. Let's say they did a release. Now, obviously they would like to have a behavior analysis of a user saying that, okay, are they happy with the new release or not? If they are not happy with the new release, probably we will roll back, right? That can be another scenario for them. Then probably I would like to release my software to a certain set of people. Probably I would like to release my software only for Delhi people, or maybe some other territory as well. So that can be another option. Then whether cost is a factor for me. Because let's say you can achieve everything, but then obviously it will come with a cost. Then let's say if something fails, what is the duration of rollback? Can I afford longer rollback duration? If I can't afford a longer rollback duration, then obviously I have to go with some other option. Negative impact on user. Or let's say I achieve all those things, but let's say if my setup becomes very, very complex, then obviously that is also not a case for me. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, now let's talk about all those. So now I'll explain. So I think when you talk to DevOps people or developer, these concepts will really help you out, right? Where you will understand it. So for example, as a Scrum Master, for you, it is important that application remains stable and all those aspects. So let's say when you understand that, okay, why deployment is taking a lot more time, why it is not stable, probably these things will come handy for you. So now one deployment strategy is called recreate deployment. And as its name suggests, recreate means that it will recreate everything. So let's say you have a version 1 on an application running and it was functioning fine. But let's say when you want to release a version 2, what will happen? It will delete everything and then it will create everything from new for you. So this is what is recreate. So for example, let's say somebody purchased a house. Somebody can say that, okay, I will destroy the complete house and I will rebuild again, depending on my need and requirement. Somebody will say that, okay, I will renovate it. Maybe I will modify it and do that. Now different people, maybe the person who wants to build the house in its own way, completely restructure it, probably that person will prefer the recreate. But the person who has money constraint, probably they would like to do some small modification and continue with that house, right? So same is the case with recreate deployment. Now, I don't expect exact answer, but I would like to hear from you. What do you think? Let's say if we do recreate deployment, what do you think? What would be the zero downtime? Will you have a downtime or you will not have a downtime?
We will have a
There'll
downtime.
be a subsequent downtime and there'll be a lot of loss there, I guess.
Right. So we will have a downtime with recreate, right? That is totally understandable. Now, would you be able to do real traffic analysis? The traffic that is coming into system, would you be able to analyze?
No.
So you will not be, anyways, both of them are not existing together. So which means that analysis, which traffic is going here, which traffic is going there, that you cannot control. Can you manage users, that which user will be served from which piece of code or which user will be served by which piece of code? So take this example, let's say Facebook does it, right? So Facebook, when releases the feature, they decide that, okay, only this set of user will be able to access this feature. Rest of the user will not be able to access this feature. With this recreate strategy, can you do that?
No. No,
Yes, because see, you cannot do that, because what is happening that you are deleting everything, which means that all the users will either be on the previous version or with the latest version. So you cannot send a certain set of users to this particular new version of code, right? So which means that targeted users also you cannot do. Cost, what is your opinion about cost?
No, so this can be, sorry to interrupt. So, but we can do that. So by enabling and disabling the feature. So if we can, so while writing the code.
No, that is different. So what I'm saying that, can you say that, okay, 10 users out of this user will go here, 10 users will go here? That you cannot do, right? Because they are not coexisting together. When I'm saying targeted user, I'm not talking in terms of feature, I'm talking in terms of release, where you're saying that, okay, only these users will go to feature version 1 and let's say 50% user will go to version 2. That you cannot do, because both version 1 and version 2 are not existing together, right? I'm not talking about showing specific feature, I'm talking about targeting user to specific version only.
No, so if we do the versioning also, so while doing the deployment, so if we do the versioning also, so then in case if we have released the new version and we have not asked the client to use the new version, so they will keep using the older version, and the clients which you have communicated to them, they need to use the new version, so they can use that.
But Ajay, if you see here, both version 1 and version 2 are not existing at simultaneous point of time. either your version 1 exists or version 2 exists. That is what is recreate is. So let's say if your version 1 and version 2 would have both existed, then you could have said that, okay, these users will go to version 1, these users will go to version 2. When I'm talking about recreate, what I'm saying is that version 1 will exist. It will be serving. When you have to release a new version, this will completely get destroyed. It will not exist. And version 2 will get created for you. So when version 1 and version 2 will not exist together, how you can say that, okay, certain traffic will go to version 2 and certain traffic will go to version 2, version 1 and version 2. Is that clear?
Hello? Yeah, okay, but so in case generally, so we will so my experience that in case if we are doing the beta thing,
different deployment studies. This deployment study says that you destroy everything and you recreate new, right? So which means that they are not existing parallelly. If they are not existing parallelly, then obviously you cannot target users to a specific version.
Yes.
So this is that deployment strategy. Okay. You will come to those deployment strategy where both the version will exist, and then you can do that targeted user.
It's only on one server, so that's why only one can exist at a time. If
yes,
we have multiple ones, then obviously we can do a targeting. So.
Yeah, we will come to that. Okay, cloud cost or the cost that you will incur in this case.
Since we are just deleting the previous code and we are just reutilizing the space that was occupied by first version, I don't think there'll be much change in the cost.
Yes, because you would be running your infrastructure on a minimum setup, right? So it will be always minimum cost, right? Yes. So then we are saying that the cost is something that you will have. What about rollback?
Rollback should be huge because you've deleted the previous one and you've uploaded something which is not useful. So this is going to be a disaster. Perfect recipe.
Right. Negative impact on user?
Yeah, because there is a downtime.
Yeah.
A complexity of setup?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so because
destroy and
you can take a classic example, right? Let's just anything that goes down in your home or anywhere, right? You say that, okay, let's restart it. It will get fixed, right? So that is the most simplistic thing. And for DevOps people also, it is let's destroy it and recreate it, and we are done. So then what we are saying that in recreate, the cost and complexity is very, very easy. And that's why people use this recreate, because for them, the complexity is also very minimal and cost is also very minimal. And let's say if I can afford downtime, let's say if my customers can afford downtime, or let's say I have a customer base which is only in India, which means that night time I can afford a downtime. So then I can go with this approach, right? Now let's talk about rolling deployment. Now in rolling deployment, what happens? Let's say you are having a version 1. Now what will happen? It will, so as its name suggests, it will roll. So what it will do, it will create a new server, remove one server, create a new server, remove one server, create another server and remove the server and remove the previous setup. Now this is better than, if you see, this is better than recreate deployment, because you are doing it in a rolling fashion or ramped up fashion or in a gradual fashion, right?
Kind of a migration, right?
Yeah, you can say kind of a migration. Yeah, you can say it like that only, right? Let's do this activity once again. Downtime.
There would be minimal. I mean, there won't be, I think, zero downtime. There would be some downtime.
But why there would be a downtime? If you
notice,
mean,
in the version 2, I mean, on the version 2, we are just releasing the partial functionality, right?
No, it's a full functionality. So let's say there are 3 servers and every server is fully functional in its own.
Okay, so let's say if the user has to consume, I mean, okay, Sandeep, just.
I'll give you an example. Take this example. Let's say you are working with a team, right? And there are 3 developers who are doing, and let's say one developer resigns, which is happening a lot these days, right? One developer resigns. Now you have a notice period of 2 months. You hired another developer, and within 2 months that became productive, which means that you will release this resource only when then this resource is getting ready and it will be able to fulfill all those requirements. Now, will you have any impact on your project?
Okay. Yeah. In that case, absolutely no.
Right. And that's what exactly is happening here. This server is available. It is ready. Once it is ready, then only that server is getting deleted, right?
Okay.
By the way, this example is very bad, but this is apt for these days. So what we are saying that we will not have a zero downtime. Now, real traffic analysis, we will not have a real traffic analysis because we are not analyzing here. Targeted user, are we saying that this user will go to version 1 and version 2?
No.
So we are not saying that. Cloud cost?
Yes, there'll be additional cost because you will be at one point in time before the first version gets deleted, you have two versions present.
But it would be slightly more, right? Not a lot.
Yes.
Probably as we move forward, you will understand that what I'm trying to say. But because let's say you have 3 servers, you have just acquiring one more server. And that is only you're doing only for that deployment purpose, right? Time. A rollback?
Rollback, I think you can very easily roll back because once you upload the new version and you test that everything is working fine, that is when you delete the previous one. So you can just roll back to the previous one. You don't have to roll back, the new version in a way because the previous one is there as the backup.
Raki, just one point I would like to add that this rolling deployment, here you are not controlling it. It will happen.
Okay.
So for example, the car is in auto-driven mode. Okay. So it is auto-driving. It's not like that you are driving it, you can put a brake and all those things that you cannot do.
All right.
It is costly.
So it is costly, but not that costly because first of all, that you will not have a downtime and then you will do similar rollback, but obviously there would be some duration. It will be longer duration because you are not doing a quick rollback. You are doing an incremental rollback as well as you would have done rollback deployment, right? Negative impact on user will get impacted if there's an issue. Complexity of setup?
Not.
So it will be slightly complicated, not very complicated, but obviously if you compare it with recreate, there you have to define that, okay, traffic will go here, I will delete a server, create a server. So there is certain level of complexity, but as compared to other deployment strategy, it is not that complicated, right? By the way, this rolling deployment strategies, a lot of companies uses this rolling deployment strategies. Recreate, people who can afford downtime, they uses it. But most of the time, in my experience, at most of the places, this rolling deployment strategy is being used.
Is it because of zero downtime?
Yes, zero time is a very important factor. And then complexity is also not very complex. It is minimally complex, but not very complex.
Blue green also gives the same benefits.
Yeah, I'll come to that. That is next. Okay. Now, blue green is something like this, where what you happen, you have a setup, and then you have a blue setup and you have a green setup. Now what happens that you create a green setup and then your internal team checks that feature 1 working fine, feature 2 working fine, feature 3 working fine. If all of them are working on the real production environment, then they say that, okay, let's move the complete traffic to my green environment. So take this example, let's say a company who's releasing its product, they released a product. They created those products, but you are not selling it yet. What you did, you picked the 5 or 10 product, and then within your internal team or the quality team, they started using those products. So let's say you created car. Now your internal teams are test. So when you do road testing and all those things, that is what is happening here. And when the road testing succeeds, then you start selling your car. Same is the case with your software product. You release the new version of your software, but you are not giving it to your consumer. What you're doing, you're only certain internal users of your system are doing that validation. And once you're comfortable with it, then you release it for the other people to consume.
Basically, you mean there'll be 2 copies of the system.
Yes.
And there'll be different users for those 2 copies.
One would be your real customers. Another would be your internal testing team who would be testing. But then they would be validating the production environment, right? Because what happens, Raki, that though you have dev environment, QA, UAT staging, but you don't have production data, right? And environment to environment, sometimes what happens that things that are not the bugs that comes, they never come on dev, QA, UAT, but they come on production. So then you have to test your setup on real production data as well. And that's why this blue-green deployment becomes very, very handy.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, again, let's look at the zero downtime.
Yeah, it would be having zero.
Yeah, zero down.
Zero downtime, real traffic analysis. Because the traffic is coming there, you can do a traffic analysis. Targeted users, still you cannot do it because the real customer, you are not sending it, but your internal customers are sending. What would be about cost?
Cost would be higher.
So the rolling has higher cost as compared to recreate. Obviously, blue-green would be having higher cost because now we have an exact replica of production, right?
So blue-green would be having higher than.
Yes, blue-green would be having higher cost, right? Then, sorry, rollback duration.
Yeah, it would be less.
Right, because now let's say if something fails, in fact, you see, you didn't do any rollback because real customer were never moved here, right? Are you getting this point?
Yeah.
So then what we are saying that rollback is would be very minimal. Negative impact on user. This is more like negative impact on user that when the, so let's say I did my testing, but somehow I went to production, but still my customer will be impacted, right? If on real time, real users has that problem. So that's what negative impact on user. Complexity of setup.
Not much complex, but yeah, it is higher than the previous one.
Yes, because now what you have to do, you create a complete setup, you have to maintain it, manage it, then you have to switch the traffic as well from blue to green. That is an additional exercise that you have to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So higher.
Yeah. Are you saying something?
No, I was saying that the complexity of setup will be higher.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is another deployment strategy that is becoming very popular these days, canary deployment. But before I explain that to you, this canary term, any one of you know about this canary term and significance of this term? There is a historical story behind this canary, and which is not good one, but I would like to tell you because from there this term got picked up. By the way, have you heard about canary bird?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So what used to happen that in 1700 or around 1800, people who used to go into coal mines, right? So people who used to go into coal mines at that point of time, they don't have any technology to know that whether those coal mines are uh, uh, toxic or not, or whether a human can sustain there or not, right? So what they used to do, they used to take canary bird and they used to send those canary bird in those caves first, in mines. And let's say if they continue chirping, or let's say if they return back, then they used to go inside. Otherwise, they usually don't go because they didn't any mechanism to figure it out whether the mines have a lot of poisonous gas or not, right? Now, same concepts gets applied into canary deployment, where what you do, you say that my users, only selected few users will be sent to the next version of code. And now what I will do, I will analyze the behavior of those customer, whether everything is working fine or not. If everything is working fine, I will move my complete setup to the version 2. But if this is not correct, then I will go back to the previous version. So here you are doing what you are doing, you are analyzing the behavior of the users. Till that point of time, till all the previous deployment strategy, you were not doing that. And that's why canary deployment is becoming very, very popular. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's do the exercise again. Zero downtime.
Yes.
Yes.
Real traffic analysis.
Yes.
Targeted user.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
To an extent, I will talk about that later, but yes. Cloud cost.
Higher.
Higher.
Higher, right? Sorry. Rollback duration.
Medium.
Medium, right. Negative impact on user.
Same, medium.
will it not be medium? Because first of all, you have not read, sorry, you said medium, right?
Yeah.
Yes, right. Complexity of setup?
More
yes.
than even the previous setup.
Right, it would be more, right? Fine. Yeah, anyone saying anything? Okay, this is another deployment strategy which is not being used a lot, but that is called shadow deployment, right? What happens in shadow deployment? The main setup is shadowed by a new version, and then the behavior is analyzed here. The real traffic is always served from here, older version, and that is shadowed on the new version as well. But then we see that whether new version is behaving, how it is behaving, is it behaving better or not? And let's say if we are confident that new version is behaving fine, then only this new version is made active and the older version is deleted. It's more like recreate. But then the addition to that recreate is that I'm not quickly terminating it. What I'm doing with the previous version, I am keeping my new version in place as well, and I'm validating that how my new version is behaving. Is that clear? I'll give an example. So let's say take the previous bad example. Let's say somebody resigned, right? So when somebody resigns, what you do, you get a new person and you put that person as a shadow of the previous person, right? And you say that you shadow that person for a month or a 2 month. And as soon as that person becomes equally performant to the person who has resigned, then that person basically you say that okay, now since this person can handle all your tasks, so probably now we are comfortable relieving you, right? That's what typically happens. Same is the case with shadow deployment. Is that clear?
What is the difference then between rolling and this shadowing? Any specific?
The only difference, Charu, between shadowing and rolling is that in rolling, let's say I had some issue in new version, right? So take this example. In what you did, in rolling, what you did, you had a previous server, you had a new server. In this, you created a new server. You didn't validate it that the new server is handling any request or not, and you deleted this server, and then it started taking this request. So take this example. Let's say you have a one resource, you put another resource, and then you said that okay, start taking the request. I'm not doing any KT for you. So from day zero, you start performing. In rolling deployment, that's what was happening, right? You had previous setup, you added one more server and you removed one server without validating whether it can perform well or not. Whereas in this case, what we are saying that old version, we are putting a shadow here, and that will only shadow this setup. It will not serve any request, but any request that will come here, it will go here as well. And it will only process that request. And then we will see that whether it is performing as expected or not. But the customer will always interact with this person.
That KT metaphor was perfect. I mean, I got it.
Okay, great. Fine. I hope this is clear to everyone, right? Now let's do this activity once again. Zero downtime.
Yes.
Right. Real traffic analysis.
Yeah, green.
Targeted user.
No.
Because you are not controlling, right? Everything either going to that or ultimately it will go to shadow, right? Cloud cost.
Yeah, higher.
Yellow. I mean,
yeah, it would be somewhere around red or yellow because you are creating it for the whole time, right? Rollback duration.
Less.
It would be less, right? Because unless you are not sure the shadow is working fine, you are not moving forward, right? So you will actually not have any use case for rollback. Negative impact on user.
There won't be any.
Yeah, there won't be any because you are unless you are not validating everything is happening, you are not doing. Complexity of setup.
I think it would be there, probably yellow or red. Something.
Yep. So that would be there. Complexity would be there because you have a shadow, then you have to set up a system that will shadow the request. You have to do that additional stuff as well, right? Great. I think now you would have a very clear understanding of deployment strategies, when to use what deployment strategy, on which KPIs you have to measure those deployment strategies, right? Hello?
Yes. So everybody
Yes,
was
Sandeep.
so much involved that they just forget to respond, and yeah, they are so much involved.
Okay, so with this, we are pretty much done in terms of discussion. This is some detail about me. Anyways, PPT will be shared with you, so you will have that detail. But now, if you have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer those questions.
Along with the questions, Sandeep, I guess we would also like to hear from the developers